Ladies and gentlemen, let's take our seats as we begin the afternoon session on maritime security. Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much. So welcome back from lunch for all of those who were here for the first session this morning, where we looked at diplomacy, how we can make sure that we're using the European Union diplomatic tools for fisheries, but also for ocean governance as well. That was our topic this morning. We had some great panels, great insights, and great discussions. Needless to say that this topic absolutely appropriate for the moment, isn't it? Navigating maritime security. We were saying this morning that as we speak, things are changing. It's such a fast-moving environment at the moment, geopolitically. And I think, even since we started lunch today, there will have been developments, things would have been changing. So great to take a moment to keep focusing on the work we're doing, the progress we're making, and even if there are distractions, and we talk about unpredictability, incomprehension of what's going on, it is good to take a breather, to take the time to reflect on what is going on the ground and at sea as well. So without further ado, to lay the foundations, the groundwork for our discussion, we have a great panel, in fact, two great panels this afternoon. I'd like to call on Dalila Al-Khudairi from the European Commission, DG MARE. She's Director of Maritime Policy, for some opening remarks. Dalila, a warm welcome, please.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, also our esteemed participants to our two going to be very interesting panel discussions in a very short time. A very warm welcome to this particular timely session on navigating maritime security. And as Seamus said, the geopolitical events are changing and evolving so fast around us. So when we talk about security threats in the maritime domain increasing in number and complexity, well, this is not an understatement, I can say today. And this has been building up. Over the last few years, we've been seeing more and more attacks on our critical maritime infrastructure. More recently, also shadow fleet activities, but also contestation over maritime spaces. So it's just an example of how the panorama is being changing and becoming more visible, actually, and also in the news, so the public is even aware. And these sort of challenges can only be really tackled if we work together. And we work together in a coordinated manner with our member state authorities, with, importantly, our EU institutions, very importantly also the private sector, and at the same time enhancing this civil maritime cooperation. And the EU Maritime Security Strategy, whose revision was adopted in 2023, is the framework through which the EU acts to safeguard its interests at sea, protect our citizens, protect our maritime infrastructure, our maritime domain, and very importantly also our maritime economy. There is no maritime economy if we don't operate in a safe and secure environment. And the EU Maritime Security Strategy reinforces the international rule-based order, ensuring that we are fully compliant with international instruments, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And I'd like to take the opportunity to also say that at the end of this year, the European Commission, together with the High Representative and its External Action Service, will present to the Council a report on the implementation of the EU Maritime Security Strategy. This report, of course, will take into consideration the recent developments as well, but importantly, it will also summarize the numerous actions that have been implemented by Member States, the Commission, the External Action Service, but also importantly also our agencies. And in alignment with the Maritime Security Strategy, the European Ocean Pact recognizes maritime security as a prerequisite to the development of a European sustainable blue economy. And this is why maritime security is one of the 6 priorities of the Ocean Pact. And the Ocean Pact highlights particular aspects of maritime security. It focuses on the major challenges that I've painted just a short while ago, and particularly brings to the fore the threats to the critical maritime infrastructure, but also the shadow fleet activities. And as you know, when we talk about critical maritime infrastructure, we are, of course, talking about undersea cables, pipelines, all of which, as you know yourself from events and so on, have been more and more increasingly damaged by malicious, intentional actions over the past few years and are growing with more and more intensity. And these acts are easier to perpetrate in the maritime domain, but they're very difficult to detect and also, importantly, to repair than they are on land. And this makes critical maritime infrastructure an attractive target for our adversaries because of this uncertain domain in which we are operating. And we see that very well, how Russia makes use of the shadow fleet and the substandard vessels that also pose a significant threat to our maritime safety, our marine environment, but also importantly, our security. And these activities of the shadow fleets are directly and indirectly impacting our international trade, we see that, and also are presenting growing challenge to our rule-based global trading system that we have become very familiar with. And the European Commission, of course, we're not working alone. We work very closely with the European External Action Service. There is a task force that's been set up and dedicated especially to tackle the issue of shadow fleet activities. Now, we know very well the geopolitical context that's developing very quickly around us, very fast, as Seamus said, extremely fast. And we see now basically that maritime security and all issues related to the maritime and the threats and the challenges means that maritime security can no longer be treated as a periphery, and at the periphery, it now becomes at the heart of our EU security landscape. And yesterday we adopted the Industrial Maritime Security Strategy. We also adopted before that the EU Action Plan on Cable Security, but also the Action Plan on Drones and Counter-Drones. And all of these are very important developments that are contributing towards enhancing our maritime domain awareness, but very importantly, they're putting into place the foundation for also enhancing the technologies that we need and also making us also come to the fore as technological leaders. And this is very important. And all the underpin related research and financing that is required to make all of that happen. So today we're going to be discussing these challenges. We're going to be talking about how we're going to be tackling them. We're going to be talking about the different initiatives that are in place, including the Coast Guard Cooperation. So we've got the presence of our agencies here with us today. And so we have a great 2-panel discussion, and it's very timely in view of the situation we're in. So I think we're all very much looking forward to the kind of questions and discussions that will come, and I hope we will have also interesting things that we can reflect upon also as we go forward, even with the revision of the Maritime Security Strategy. Not the revision, rather, the progress on the implementation of that revision, which will be quite important. So thank you very much. And I look forward also to welcoming my colleague from the External Action Service who will continue with the introduction. So thank you. Over to you, Seamus.
Dalila, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yes, we're laying the groundwork, aren't we, for our 2 panels coming up. And yes, following me on the stairs from the European External Action Service, we have Maciej Stadujek, Director of Security and Defense Policy. So your opening remarks, please, really to feed into the conversation that follows food for thought, obviously from the European External Action Service's point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's really great to be here, and I was very pleased to hear your great speech, Dalila. It's always good that even when I come from a different institution, we see eye to eye, and I can agree with everything what you have said. So let me maybe put some aspects which are very important for us at the EEAS from the security, from the maritime security point of view. And as all of you well know, maritime security has been important priority for the EU for many years. But in recent months and years, we have seen both an expansion on the scope of what we understand as maritime challenges, as well as significant increase in its political relevance. Now, maritime security is at the top of our political agenda. But as Dalila mentioned, the updated maritime security strategy already very much reflects this expanded agenda. And this strategy, but also our different actions, be it on securing critical maritime infrastructure or tackling the shadow fleet, all of them underline the reality that maritime security is a cross-cutting issue which involves multiple institutions at national and European levels. And to address these strategic priorities, we need to work collectively at all levels, and therefore that's also the reason why I'm so happy to be here today, together with colleagues from the Commission and member states, to underline also in that way our excellent cooperation. And we all know that the EU is a global trading actor. So we depend on maritime routes for our security, economic development, trade, transport, energy, to name few. And maritime routes are the backbone of global economy, carrying 80–90% of international trade. It is therefore essential for our prosperity and our security that maritime routes remain open to free navigation in accordance with the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. And our oceans are also critical sources of raw materials. Our green transition is heavily dependent on making use of the maritime space, from offshore wind farms, energy pipelines and electricity cables to LNG terminals. Global communication, on which our economies and societies are dependent, is based on a dense network of submarine data cables. So the pressing need for the EU to be more engaged in protecting the security, in strengthening the security of the maritime domain is very clear. While traditional maritime threats and challenges like piracy, kidnapping for ransom, trafficking of humans still remain, we are also seeing the emergence of new vulnerabilities in the maritime domain. Far too often, recently we have seen deliberate disruptions and sabotage. For instance, in case of severing of submarine cables in the Baltic Sea and in the Southeast Asia. Geopolitical crises also have an impact on the maritime domain. We have territorial disputes in the South China Sea. Arctic is increasingly contested, and security challenges continue to hamper our ability to fully exploit the potential of the Black Sea, for instance, for connectivity. And of course, Middle East maritime routes are under threat with a major impact on global markets and also endangering the safety of seafarers. Finally, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is also sustained by maritime trade and export of oil and gas through sea. Tackling the source of income in order to undermine Russia's war economy is a strategic priority for the EU and our international partners. But we also see Russia's willingness to endanger the environmental and safe navigation through the use of substandard, uninsured or underinsured oil tankers plying the seas. It poses, of course, serious risk to maritime routes and to coastal communities across the whole globe. It's not only a European problem. So that's the reason why we are tackling Russian shadow fleet through sanctions. We put on our sanctions list vessels, but also enablers. We are also encouraging member states to more forcefully implement the international law on the seas, with the aim of undermining Russian war economy, but also we want to strengthen maritime environment safety and maritime security. So the EU is one of the leading contributors to the maritime security through our operational engagement, naval presence, investment in capacity building, support to regional maritime architecture, for example, in the Gulf of Guinea and in the Indian Ocean. We are bringing real contribution. Let me maybe highlight two examples of our activities that are making us better prepared for the described emerging challenges. First is the EU Action Plan on Cable Security, and I will stop here because I'm sure that you will hear more about that during one of the panels. And secondly, we are also strengthening our collective maritime domain awareness, including through further developing already existing platforms. And here, of course, is EMSA, but we also have CISA and MARSUR. In the same vein, our 3 naval CSDP operations have started monitoring Russian shadow fleet and gathering information about those vessels. And our goal to end, our goal is clear: to maintain peace and international order based on rule of law and international law, including freedom of navigation. And today's this conference and the panels that will follow offers a great opportunity to see at the maritime security issue in a very holistic way, to see how we can make most of our regulatory framework and how we can brainstorm on how we can make a real difference on the ground, although maybe I should say on the sea. So thank you very much once again for having me here, and I do wish you a very, very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Marchier, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yes, our discussion, our first panel, is titled Current Maritime Security Challenges, with a focus on shadow fleets and threats to critical maritime infrastructure. Of course, we've talked about undersea cables, we've talked about sabotage, cyber attacks as well, we hear, even when it comes to maritime and ships at sea. So lots to talk about. Just to let you know that it's not just us up here on the stage doing all of the hard work and all of the talking. We actually do want to make this interactive. So just to let you know that there will be a chance for you in the audience to ask questions as they come up. We'll be using Slido. Everybody here now knows Slido. We're going to be flashing a QR code, and we're going to be getting you later, after the panel, to give your questions to the panelists questions that come to mind. So do make a note of issues that you want to talk about, that you want to ask questions of our panelists. But actually, maybe as a warm-up for Slido, it's very important for the panelists to know who they're talking to. It's very important in these situations. And what we'd like to do is to start with a couple of Slido questions, just to really know about you. So feel free to flash on the code. And the first question, of course, is where are you from? What country are you joining us from? You can even put a city if you want. And this is great for our panelists, just to know who we're addressing. Spain, #1 at the moment. Is there a reason for that? Greece coming out on top as well, Italy, France. And so, of course, for those who don't know Slido and the word cloud, the one in the middle and the largest and the highlighted are the ones that are the most popular. Belgium, that's interesting. Very small on the side. Europe, we have a generalist. The City of Peace, The Hague, great, with a little tag attached to it. We have people from Cyprus, Poland, Sweden, Portugal, and it's great to have this variety. We also have somebody from Auckland, New Zealand. I'm half New Zealander, and I actually have already met my fellow Kiwi in the audience. Wales, Norway, Tromsø, Italy, I think that's misspelled, Italia, with a triple A on the end, which is always great. Poland, Holland, the Netherlands, I think we say now. Venice, Lisbon, Portugal as well, Germany, Ireland, good to see as well with a name like Seamus, Serbia, Finland. But Spain, a big presence from Spain. Hands up all of the Spanish in the audience today. Did we all come on the same plane as a chartered aircraft or as a chartered boat? A chartered boat coming to Brussels. Listen, thank you all very much. That's great. So we can get a feel for who's in the audience. Feel free to take a photograph of this if you'd like to have this information for afterwards. Let's go to our second question. Our second question, because we're going to be building up a profile of who's in the audience. Which organization do you represent? And this is fascinating for the panelists to know who they're talking to. We actually adapt our presentations, don't we, when we see who we're talking to. Think tank, an independent, the European Marine Board, FUGRO, EFCA, the European Commission, of course, with a capital C it should be as well. I'm just going to correct things here. This is all live, by the way. I've never seen what's on the screen, so it's always difficult for me to try to do this live. The Swedish Regional Office, Bangor University, Coast Guard, European Blue Forum, great. The European Marine Board, I think I already said. SETMAR, from a startup, so we have, the different sectors. She Changes Ocean, interesting. Permanent representation of Italy to the European Union. The Swedish Coast Guard, ESA, Uptime Technologies. Also a chance to put a little bit of a plug for our startups and our companies involved in maritime security. So lots of great attendance, so a diverse range of people. DG Move as well, of course. Client Earth. This is great. This is great for our panelists, isn't it? To kind of get an idea of who is in the room. So feel free to take a photograph of that as well. It's always good to keep for our records after the discussion. Let's go to our third question. We're building up this profile. The third question. What are your main interests for today's session? What is bringing you here? Is it the undersea cables? The shadow fleets? Other questions about maritime security? Is it about collaboration, cooperation? Is it about enforcement of policies when it comes to fisheries, for example? Ocean Act and EU MSS, the shadow fleet, maritime security. All of the words very big at the moment. The word cloud is going crazy with all of this. Coast Guard cooperation, and we will be talking about this. We have the Coast Guard representatives from Italy and from Spain as part of our discussions today. Refugees, maritime security, of course, maritime cyber security, understanding the threats, the challenges, enforcement, new technology, knowledge, subsea cables, ocean observing, the role in the blue economy, It's all interlinked, isn't it? The middle powers, preparedness. What am I missing? Understanding end user needs. And don't be upset if I don't come to your word. I'm just doing this completely randomly. We saw the Strait, we're talking about at the moment, the Strait of Hormuz. As we say, the geopolitics, very, very present for this discussion. New technology, ocean security, islands security as well. Mitigation of threats, surveillance. It's great just to take a moment to actually see and take in some of these words, because this is going to feed our discussion. And what I'm expecting is that if you're really active when it comes to the word cloud, we will have some nice questions afterwards on the Slido for our panelists. So thank you very much. A big round of applause to all of you for participating in this. We've built up the profile, which is always very important when it comes to security, building up the profiles. We need to know who we're addressing, who's in front of us. So thank you all very much for that. As I say, the focus on shadow fleets, threats to critical maritime infrastructure, the geopolitics at the moment, very, very present. And in fact, we were going to have a scene setter, if I can call it that, actually today from somebody from DG MOVE, the director, Fontini Ioannidou, who actually spoke in a panel earlier in the week. But in fact, she has an urgent matter to attend to linked to the current situation. An example in real time of the urgency of all of this. So to set the scene for us, we're very, very pleased to welcome to the stage from DG MOVE, Jakob Tierling, senior expert in maritime safety, in the Maritime Safety Unit at DG MOVE. So some extra food for thought, if you can, for us, Jakob. Thank you very much. A warm round of applause for Jakob.
Thank you, Seamus, and thank you and good afternoon to all. Indeed, as you can see, I am not Fontini. I don't pretend to be Fontini. I cannot be Fontini. But I have been thrown in at the deep end today, happens most days, because of the current situation. I'm by no means an expert in maritime security. I work with safety issues, but I have seen the names on the panel, and you are in very, very good hands. I will convey, first of all, the excuses from Fontini. As said, we are, as you will follow in the press or be directly involved, experiencing a lot of things happening also for the maritime part, and therefore unable to leave, although it was clearly her wish to be here and to discuss these things and get your thoughts and ideas and input. But I will do my best, and I'm glad to see that you've digged up an old photo of me somewhere as well. I actually believe the organizers did not have the current dramatic situation in mind when developing the agenda and including these panel discussions on current maritime security challenges, because they are more prominent than I think we wish. And if I look at the overall heading of the whole Ocean Days and then this day, addressing Europe's critical challenges today or tomorrow, I think tomorrow is already here today. But I am, in Fontini's place, delighted to set the scene for this very knowledgeable expert panel. I will do so for ongoing issues regarding shadow fleet and also a little bit on the critical maritime infrastructure. But I think it wouldn't surprise you if I spend, and Fontini asked me to, a few words regarding the current situation and challenges. I think you would agree with me that we see the strategic importance of maritime and shipping, but we also see it being taken hostage in the context of conflicts and war. As mentioned by other speakers, as the EU, we are very dependent We may not acknowledge it, but we are very dependent on the maritime ships sailing with the goods that we need or export. The de facto closing of the Strait of Hormuz and the feared resumption of the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea are causing disruptions, will cause disruptions, not only to ships, but also to human life. There are always crew on board. There might be passenger ships, or we know there are passenger ships in the area. To shipping, meaning the goods that the commercial ships are carrying, especially the energy trade from the Gulf states. You've all read the press, but quite a lot, especially of refined products, are coming from this area. I dare say, however, that it's not shipping that it's the prime target. It's a little bit a bystander, but we are seriously suffering the side effects of other objectives and others' objectives here. We are in a very peculiar situation, actually. And for as long as there's been trade, there have been ships. As mentioned by others, it's the backbone of modern society. Freedom of navigation is not just a saying. It's one of the fundamental principles in the law of the sea. And that is why we can allow and have open markets and free trade. So this becomes, the whole sector becomes strategically important. And what is happening now just underlines this strategic importance of shipping as an own mode and for trade. And everything around it, the whole oceans. I can here, also at the request of Fortini, draw your attention to that this is very much the core of two strategies that the Commission adopted just yesterday. One strategy concerning the maritime industry sector and one concerning ports. I will not present them here. There will be ample opportunity to read, and they will be presented in other, maybe also this fora. But the core of this is what I have underlined. We need to ensure that shipping works, that ports works, and that it is safe, secure, and sustainable. But we are here today, unfortunately, in the context of current conflicts and wars. We must not forget the Ukraine-Russia situation and other conflicts that affects us a lot in many ways, including for shipping. And I have been doing this for maybe a little bit longer. My career so far, until the war between Ukraine and Russia broke up, the aggression of Russia on Ukraine, has been to try and maintain open markets, safe transport via ship, by maritime transport. For the first time in my life, and not an easy one, we're actually trying to find things to prevent certain types of ships from sailing because they pose a threat and they might be circumventing EU sanctions in a way we don't like. There might be at first sight a conflict, but when we look closer, not. Because the fight against substandard shipping is not new. Substandard shipping means the ships of poor quality that may not meet the international convention requirements. The IMO policy at the international level, IMO is the International Maritime Organization, a UN organ specialized for shipping, and the EU policies since the early 1990s have addressed substandard shipping, trying to eradicate them. It's therefore quite disappointing to see how quick they came out of the shades to continue to trade when the charter rates went up. So it's also a challenge for us and for you to address the inventiveness of operators today in using the gray zone, or should I say, the shadows. And they are quite inventive. And we see a lot of operators and operations. I have to say, I'm not myself sure they are all actually responsible ship owners. But they are using loopholes in the international legal framework or outright fraudulent behavior to circumvent just about anything to earn money. It's nothing wrong in earning money, but the whole mantra, especially in IMO, is a level playing field. So undercutting by not following any rules is not a level playing field. And it poses to us a serious situation because most of these ships sail from Russian ports carrying Russian origin oil. Not only, but mostly. Oil is the problem or the issue. And they sail along our coast, or EU member states' coast, your coastline, posing the threat, a heightened risk that we haven't seen in a long time. And of course, I'm thinking about the shadow fleet. And of course, I'm thinking not only of shadow fleets carrying Russian oil, perhaps circumventing our sanctions. I need to be very careful here. Not all shadow fleets are poor quality, and not all of them are actually breaching any rules. It's EU sanctions, not UN sanctions. Nevertheless, most of them, and we have more and more evidence of this, are in poor quality, not tonnage or ships we would like to see. And I'm also thinking of behaviors, such as turning off their automated identification system, called EEAS, or long-range identification and tracking systems, LRIT, in order not to be seen, hence the name Shadow Fleet. Carrying out ship-to-ship operations in areas where they normally are not carried out, everything to not be seen. Smuggling is as old as shipping, but what we now see is a different thing. It's a different magnitude. It's a different calculation. We also see them using false flags, very creative, to set up a register, and the actual nation, the state, is not even aware. You may ask yourself whether those certificates have any value. At least that's what I'm struggling with. But we also see very risky behavior, and such as what we have experienced in the Baltic Sea, especially this time last year and just after the New Year last year, impacting critical maritime infrastructure or underwater infrastructure like cables and pipelines. I should be clear here, it's not necessarily a shadow fleet. In almost all cases, it has not been tankers but bulk carriers. But it doesn't matter, you need a big enough ship with strong enough propulsion to drag an anchor, and you will cause the damage. It's very interesting. I will not dwell more. I will be keen to hear the experts, and you have a distinguished panel to do that, on why and how come and what are the outcomes. But the very risky behavior in doing this also poses, as I said, the safety concerns. And therefore, if something goes wrong, the Baltic Sea, for instance, in the particularly sensitive sea area, so adopted by the IMO, if a big tanker, 100,000 oil of crude, goes down and spills that, I hope I have retired. I think here to be, and I'm sorry if I'm confusing, maritime security today is a much broader concept than it was when I started to work with this. There was quite a clear distinction between maritime safety and maritime security, and then pollution prevention. Maritime security normally refers to the ISPS code, or the International Ship and Port Code, Security Code. But today we are having a wide definition of maritime security, I think encompassing just about everything. The interesting point is, though, that we don't have regulation for that. We have regulation for security, as I just mentioned, internationally, and that's also been implemented in Europe through EU legislation. We have a lot of legislation on safety, stemming from the IMO, and we have a lot of rules for pollution prevention at sea from ships, stemming from international rules. But we do not have really legislation to deal with the situations we have today. That doesn't mean they are not dealt with, but we are relying back to UNCLOS. We are relying back to UNCLOS written for peacetime, for an assumption that flag states do what they are supposed to do, not trying to find loopholes. So many challenges. I have 2 sons, very interested in water, sailing, water sports, and they are asking me, always challenging, how is it possible that we see what we see today? And it's a very good question. Thankfully, I am not on the panel, so I will not answer. I will leave that to the panel to answer for you. But before handing over to them, just allow me to underline yet again that we have many challenges, many new things. We have to think differently. We can all comfortably go back and say we have the security strategy, we have UNCLOS, we have the rule of law. Do the ones that want to do otherwise care? I'll let you think about the answer. And that is very challenging for us. I myself, and I think all of you and the institutions, of course, would like to see a rule-based order also in maritime. But we need both policy making and we need practical implementation. Therefore, like in many times in maritime, we need to work not only from the policy side, in this setting, the Commission, EEAS, institutions, but we need to work with those who sail, the industry, from ports to ship owners to crew, everybody. It's their practical experience on which we can build what is practicable, implementable, and doable also in these situations. So that is a very important aspect. And I'm certainly not suggesting they are not willing to do this. They are more than keen to do it. We just have to take it up in the best way. So I will stop here as a teaser, maybe not so much, but still a little bit set in the context for the very interesting panel I'm sure you will have. I thank you for your attention, and I wish you an interesting and fruitful afternoon. Thank you very much.
Jakob, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Indeed, a teaser, a warm-up ahead of the panel. Lots of food for thought. It's like the entree, isn't it? Lots of points raised, and we'll be drilling down into all of this. What I would like to do is to call our panel to the stage without further ado, so we can actually get down into some of the nitty-gritty detail, focusing on shadow fleets and also infrastructure, etc. Let me call to the stage, first of all, from DG Connect, Christian Coqueterre de Viron. Excuse me for the pronunciation. I don't know if that was correct or not. I did my best. Director of Cybersecurity and Trust at DG Connect. A warm round of applause. We also have with us today Mikko Ervi, Chief of the Maritime Safety and Security Unit at the Finnish Border Guard. Welcome as well to the stage. Please take a seat as you find it. Also today with us, Alison Weston from the European External Action Service, Head of Unit Maritime Security, also Senior Coordinator. Alison, welcome to the stage as well. We also have with us Ambassador Alina Padianu, Romania's permanent representative to the EU's Political and Security Committee. Welcome to the stage, Alina, as well. Thank you very much. And last but not least, sharing the Celtic vibe, Ian Granger, Chief Executive Officer at the International Maritime Contractors Association. Welcome to the stage as well, Ian. So thank you very much. Lots of food for thought. There are so many things we could talk about. And what I wanted to do, we said the focus was really on shadow fleets, also infrastructure. We've talked about undersea cables, for example. And also cybersecurity, DG Connect also here with us. Let me start with Alison, first of all, perhaps, because a big part of this, and this is a word that came up for me, is collaboration, cooperation. And at the European level, I think what many people are perhaps expecting for the future is more cooperation, more collaboration, making sure that people are on the same page. Alison, could you please talk to us about what the EEAS is doing when it comes to collaboration, cooperation? And it's not just shadow fleets, it's not just the undersea cables, infrastructure, but overall. But those are just some of the examples, Alison.
Does this one work? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's very nice to be here. As you've heard, I'm from the External Action Service, and I work for Maciej Stadiek, whom you heard a little bit earlier this afternoon. And I'm responsible for maritime security in the External Action Service. And first of all, I want to echo what Jakob has just said about the breadth and complexity of what we understand as maritime security and how this has evolved even in the last couple of years. So we've seen quite a significant broadening of what we understand as security challenges in the maritime space and what this means for us in terms of the institutional and policy response. This means we have to work across institutions, across services, at the European level, but also with member states in a way that perhaps we were not accustomed to do in the past. So it really is about what we call in the EU language the integrated approach or joined up government. And this is, of course, a challenge. It means we spend a lot of time in coordination meetings, but I would like to reassure everybody that we do indeed spend a lot of time in coordination meetings, and we have quite a lot of task forces and informal inter-service mechanisms that allow us to make sure we have a good understanding of what the different actors can bring to the table, because we are really looking at understanding the vulnerabilities in the maritime space in a different way. You mentioned the shadow fleet. We, I'm sure, have more questions on that, critical infrastructure, and Christian and I have had the pleasure of briefing multiple committees in a kind of dual act on our approach on the protection of cables, but not only on those topics. When we look at other sorts of maritime security challenges relating to freedom of navigation, these are things that we have to do in a joined-up way.
Okay, Alison, a nice segue to Christian, because you mentioned DG Connect. A lot of this is to do with technology, connection. I saw that, I think it was last month, we had the adoption of the new measures against drones, for example. That's something else that we can talk about. Also, cybersecurity, and people don't often think about cybersecurity when it comes to maritime affairs. Tell us about some of those, and also how this can help in the overall security landscape when it comes to maritime affairs.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So indeed, people don't often think cybersecurity, what does that have to do with maritime, the maritime domain? But of course, we do a lot of cybersecurity around the protecting of the critical infrastructure. But also to say that when you work like me, a directorate for cybersecurity, cable security is extremely interesting for us, of course, because cables carry 97% of our communication. And my job is to make sure that we have our communication networks, our digital infrastructure, we have the availability of it, we have the integrity of it, the confidentiality of it. So that's why we've been working a lot on this cable security action plan. Now, we came recently with the drone security action plan, and of course, also here there are elements that are very interesting for the maritime domain, because our drone action plan is actually of course, driven by recent events we have seen. These have, to a large extent, been airborne incidents. But at the same time, we also know that there's a lot of things happening undersea. And we have specifically, in our drone security action plan, actually included certain actions also for maritime domain awareness about using drones to actually detect better undersea what's happening, but also, of course, actions to ensure that you can counter drones undersea. So these are some of the areas that we've looked at. More importantly, I would say also for the action plan on drones, it's that we're looking very much at the industrial dimension. I think in Europe we have some catching up to do still on this front, and this is some of the areas where we really want to put some emphasis on developing a proper European drone and counter-drone industry. I think in the maritime domain we are doing well. We have some good companies. Now what we want to do is that we want to work together with our colleagues that are working on the defense side to really look at what are the capabilities needed, what are drones needed, also for the protection of critical infrastructure, and then really have a coherent and strong industrial program driving this behind, including also, of course, testing, but also procurement, etc., to support this industry.
So there is room for cooperation with the private sector, for example, when we have innovative ideas, solutions to help in the fight to make sure that we're safe at sea. What about when it comes to the member states? Cooperation with member state authorities, because that's also, they're also big players.
Absolutely. So, of course, both our Cable Security Action Plan and the Drone Security Action Plan, they're actually similar in the sense that what we're putting forward are the concepts, the ideas, but a lot of this will, of course, be member state driven because we're here in a field that's very close to security. So the way we're doing it, and I think I can mention the cable security hubs, so the regional cable hubs is a very good example of this, where we are promoting from the union side an approach where we say member states around each sea basins work together. We will support you. We're going to do some seed funding. I have an open call right now, actually for this specific purpose, where we say, let's put member states together, cooperate around this hub, come forward with an idea for having this integrated situational awareness, and we would like to support you in this, but of course, driven very much by the member states.
Okay, we talk about cyber attacks. Mikko, in Finland, we talk about cyber attacks, but also we talk often about hybrid attacks. And that's a big focus for a lot of authorities right across the world. So tell us how you're tackling these challenges. Things are changing very fast. And it's true that when we prepared this panel some weeks ago, we didn't even imagine that we would be facing and having to think about a lot of this at the moment. So what's your take, Mikko, on some of this?
Yes, good afternoon from my side. Also, is this working? Yes. Now it's working. Yes, good afternoon from my side. It's nice to be talking here. I start with a threat to critical underwater infrastructure. This is something that is very much in clear and present way in the Baltic conditions, and I think that we have been able to show that there are consequences. The Finnish Border Guard and other actors has intervened with the cases. We have caught the culprits, and there are consequences. But we have to move on from the detection side to prevention side. And I think that the European Union Cable Security Notification is the one tool for this. We are currently implementing the security operation centers. We are implementing surveillance systems on seabed. And perhaps what is the most important issue, that we are training together. We are working together in the European Union Maritime Security Exercise in this September, where there will be, let's say, live scenario of CUI-based threats and exercises and working together with the European Union nations. But with this field, it is very vital that we have tools for communication. We can communicate with each other in a secure way. And I would like to raise up the CISE, which we are very much in favor of. And we hope to see that in the European Union Maritime Security Exercise in the September, we would be able to implement CISE in an operational way.
Okay, and of course, CISE, Common Information Sharing Environment, the acronym, apparently you're a champion of this. You've really taken this on board. How was this helping? And where could this lead us in the future, strengthening all of the action we're taking?
Well, I would like to say that the winning side has to have the best MDA, maritime domain awareness. We have to be best on this topic in the European Union. And it requires communication with each other, with the member states, from the agencies, and of course with the alliance, the military alliance, the NATO. CISE is a tool for this. It will allow us to be preventive on the CUI side. So the MDA, shared maritime domain awareness, is something that we see as a key to success in the operational field.
Okay, so a work in progress. Thanks very much, Mikko. I want to come back to a word that I think Christian mentioned, a hub, which is very important, having this infrastructure of people working together. If I could, I'd like to come to Alina, because I think in Romania, we have actually set up a maritime security hub. This was last year for the Black Sea strategy. Tell us about that, and what are the hopes for that hub?
Hi, Seamus. Hello, everyone. First and foremost, let me start a bit with the context, because there were a lot of praise and acknowledgement of the importance of the maritime security, and I think we have to look at maritime security from the big to small, from the strategic perspective, meaning what does it mean to have the power and ability to control the maritime domain, to the small, for example, the price of bread that may increase if there is a crisis blocking for months and months and months straight that delivers 20% of the world energy. So obviously it's important, and in this context, last year, there was this joint effort of developing a new strategic approach towards the Black Sea. There was a lot of inspiration from the ongoing work at that time related to the security in the Baltic Sea, but there was also an acknowledgement of the need to prepare a framework related to the Black Sea area, an area which is basically very much affected by Russia's war in Ukraine. Let's not forget that at the Black Sea we have Russia, we have Ukraine, we have obviously two member states, Romania and Bulgaria, we have two candidate countries, Turkey and Georgia. And in this context, there was a broad acknowledgement of the importance of not only setting the parameters for a different approach towards this area, but also preparing some tools that would allow us, member states, and also EU as a whole, to have a better view and a better awareness of what is happening in the Black Sea. And this is the background of this idea of having a security hub. The purpose of this security hub will be basically to, one of the main purposes would be to increase the situational awareness, for example. And for this, it's important to look into all the tools that we have. It's important to, and when I say tools, obviously, we have like CISE, we have tools, we have MARSUR, we have already some tools, but we have to find a place where we can bring all this together. And afterwards, there are the more complex things, because we have information, but how we get the information, and how we get the information about where a ship is, if a ship belongs to the shadow fleet. This is the product of a whole work and of a system that has to be in place. And this is what we want to deliver through this hub, and for that we are working very closely with our Bulgarian friends, but also with our member states, and obviously very, very closely with EEAS and the European Commission.
And what about non-EU countries as part of the hub? Does that easily tie in as well? Because you mentioned Bulgaria, but non-EU states as well?
Yes, definitely. There was an intense consultation with Turkey, and obviously, when the hub will be established, there will be even a closer cooperation, we hope. We should also keep in mind that there is also a new NATO cooperation. Turkey is also an ally. So we will have a lot of links and a lot of ways to build together more security awareness in the Black Sea. Thank you.
Okay, Elena, thanks very much. And fortunately, we have the expertise. So when things go wrong, when we attack the cables, when we're carrying out the attacks, we have organizations like the International Maritime Contractors Association, often called in to carry out the repairs, but also to carry out surveillance to make sure that things stay intact and there are no further threats. Ian, this is very important for you, and you know, we use the word resilience, especially at the moment with what we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, Seamus. You know, just for anybody who doesn't know, you know, we are a global trade association, international marine contractors, with over 850 members in 65 countries, but 50% of our membership are here in Europe, and the big contractors who install all of the maritime infrastructure are our board members and our key members. I think our biggest challenge has been explaining to people exactly what we do. This stuff doesn't miraculously appear in the sea from a wind turbine to an oil and gas platform or a pipeline. So that's what our members do. Anything that you can see on the seabed, well, you can't see on the seabed, anything that's on the seabed, any infrastructure has been installed by our members. They're very busy today doing that because the European ambition, and in fact now increasingly the global ambition for clean renewable energy is growing, but the capability and the supply is not growing. The industry hasn't been making fair returns, so it hasn't invested in the assets. And you know, when they're called to do a repair, which can easily be done, they're not ready. There's no preparation. They're busy building stuff, which is potentially much more lucrative. And I think that's some of the key challenges I've spent the last year. I didn't set one foot in Brussels until just over a year ago to come here and explain just what we do and how our sector can be a key part of the answer to the challenges that we see here, Seamus.
And so having contact with the authorities, with those within the European Union, crucial on a regular basis. I can imagine now it's even more important. But for example, I see that you also have a strong connection with, for example, the European Subsea Cables Association. So it's having these connections and it's the expertise on hand.
I think it's a collaborative effort. We submitted a paper last year which effectively supported the cable security plan. That, you know, in February last year, we said that's what you need. You need to engage with the private sector, explain what the requirements are, and ask the sector for how they can respond. And it's the same for detection. Many of our members are into, you know, underwater acoustics and can help detect some of those threats. But I think the other big challenge for me is we keep on talking about just underwater cables or underwater infrastructure. Telecoms is actually quite well served. There are repair cable clubs permanently established in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, for example, and in Asia. These are permanent dedicated ships on standby, ready to go in 1 hour's notice. So if Amazon, Google, Netflix have a problem with a cable in the Atlantic or in the Mediterranean, the red button goes, this ship sails. It's crewed, the technicians, the spare parts. None of that exists for power cables. And now Europe is rapidly moving towards reliance on offshore wind, but there is no repair capability today. And the examples we heard of the breakages in the Baltic, it can take 6 months, 6 or 9 months to find a vessel, get the permits, find the crew, find the spare parts. Each one of those cables comes from different manufacturers. There's no standardization. So preparation, we need a lot more investment in preparation to be able to respond quickly.
Christiane, I saw you nodding during what Ian was saying about this, this need to be really on call in some respects. Quickly on call, we can't wait 6 months.
Indeed, I was also nodding because I think this whole notion of public-private partnership is absolutely at the center of everything we do around cable security. And I think we have already, of course, very good cooperation going on in this field. We want to work more with the private sector also in terms of detection. As you were mentioning, I think the private sector has a lot to offer when it comes to technology and deploying this technology. And then I'm also nodding, of course, around these repair capabilities, because this is also a big part of our action plan. Now, again, I come from the world of the data cables. So here we've also just launched a call where we're actually looking into having modular repair capabilities available in strategically placed areas in order to speed up the deployment. This is a model actually we've learned from Finland, I can add, where they showed us how well it works. But I'm also very much aware that, of course, there's a whole another dimension undersea, which is around the power cables. And this is something that has also been really brought to our attention, that, of course, we also need to look much more at the repair capabilities for the electricity cables. And these are some areas that we are certainly also discussing with our colleagues in other parts of the House, in the Commission, how we can take more action in this field, because you're absolutely right to say we have there's a very large time frame to get these cables repaired.
Okay, I want to come to Alison in just a moment for some specific examples when it comes to the shadow fleet, because that's one of the focus topics. But does anybody else want to jump in with a thought that we haven't taken into account? Are we bringing everything to the table? Well, actually, Alison, if you have that, yeah.
I wanted to jump in on the maritime infrastructure point from the perspective of the external service. So a lot of what we've been talking here is about how we can protect the underwater and maritime infrastructure around the European continent. This is, of course, absolutely critical to our citizens, but we are also in a global economy, and what happens in one part of the world does have an inconvenient habit of having an effect in other parts of the world. And we also see that as we are using the maritime space more and more for data cables, but also for other kinds of maritime infrastructure, this is opening up a lot of new vulnerabilities. And it's vulnerabilities to natural disasters, to fishing accidents, to navigation accidents, but also, and you mentioned it earlier, the possibility of hybrid threats. It's a new attack surface, if you like, for hostile or malicious actors. So this is not only something for us to tackle in the European context, and it's been a big part of our security and defense conversations with international partners as well, whether this is in the UN. There was a side event at the UN General Assembly in September, but also in a lot of our bilateral discussions with partners around the world. And there have been some very concrete examples of the interruptions that can happen when the Ruby Mars ship went down in the Red Sea. This had an immediate impact on data transmissions, data cables to India and onwards into Asia. So there are very many parts of Asia in particular that is dependent on a very small number of connections. We have a lot of connections around the European continent. Many of these places do not, and therefore the vulnerabilities for them are even greater. So I think it's important for us to understand this is an effort for us in the European environment, but it's also an effort that we have to take forward globally and with partners, and to try to reduce the weaponization of the maritime space, to try to build these coalitions so that we can also make sure this infrastructure is protected in other parts of the world as well.
Okay, we'll come to Miko and then back to you, Alison, with regards to shadow fleets. And don't forget, in the audience, you will have the chance to ask your questions via Slido. So start thinking of what you would ask our panel. Is there something we've missed, something we need to drill down into? Miko, you wanted to add something?
Yes, thank you, Seamus. I would like to jump in and echo the role of the infrastructure owners, the industry, when it comes to the very practical protection of the critical underwater infrastructure. We have to train together with the infrastructure owners. We have to formulate a checklists together. Almost every case, the starting point comes from the operation centers and operation rooms of the infrastructure owners. So this is the reason we want to bind them very closely together to practical operational level as well.
Okay, anybody else before we focus on shadow fleets? Yes, Ian.
maybe it's linked to shadow fleets, but you know, again, I keep saying we focus on underwater infrastructure. We're currently building transformer stations, electrical transformer stations all up and down the coast because the wind farms are getting further away. So we need to convert it from AC into DC, ship it down a big cable. That cable's very vulnerable. Those transformer platforms, 2 gigawatts, the topsides structure is a big yellow box, weighs 25,000 tons. It takes 4 years to build, probably 1 year to install and commission. A shadow tanker floating down, we don't know what's on board that thing, happens to run into it or is filled with, you know, God forbid, some sort of explosions, could take out a transformer platform. 2 gigawatts are off the grid. Take a few of those off, and what we end up with is the Spain-Portugal situation from last year. The voltage drops, and the grid falls out. In Europe, the lights go off. Nobody can use their phones. Nobody can charge their cars. You know, there is above water infrastructure that is highly vulnerable, and I don't know if there's actually a contingency for, you know, for protecting those, because it could be a, you know, it could be a ship with its EEAS on. They're sailing by those platforms every day. Who knows what they're carrying and what their objectives are? So I think it's more than just underwater infrastructure. It's all the infrastructure working with the asset, you know, the asset owners, the transmission service operators, for example. Yeah.
And potentially catastrophic consequences. Let's turn back to the shadow fleet, Alison, because I was interested to hear from Jakob in his remarks saying that not all of the shadow fleet we need to be concerned about, not all, most probably. Just tell us what your service has been doing when it comes to specific, concrete action, because it is a talking point at the moment, it's a buzzword. How concrete can we be actually in these uncertain times?
Well, first of all, I would not completely accept your interpretation of what Jakob said about what we do and don't need to be concerned about. I think there are a couple of different elements to this. The only international definition we have of shadow fleet is from the International Maritime Organization from 2023, and it is not only talking about a Russian shadow fleet, but more in general, ships that are not sailing in accordance with international regulation, that are not properly insured, that are substandard, that engage in dangerous navigation practices, and so on. And that's quite a broad term. What we are mostly talking about at the moment in the European context is very much Russia's shadow fleet, and these are the ships that Russia is using to transport oil and gas and other things, which are sustaining the Russian war economy. So from our perspective, our overriding and most important political objective is, of course, and remains, reducing Russia's capacity to pursue its illegal war of aggression in Ukraine. And that means reducing the revenues that it gets from its trade in fossil fuels. So whether or not these ships are environmentally suspect, you know, we still need to tackle them from the perspective of these are sustaining Russia's war efforts. And from that perspective, our biggest instrument, of course, is sanctions, which is not a specifically maritime instrument, but the sanctions have been very significant. We've had 19 packages. The 20th package is still being discussed or finalized by member states. And we think that they are having a real effect. Russia's fuel exports have dropped to 27% below the pre-invasion level. So this is a significant impact, but we keep on working on this. This is targeting vessels, it's targeting operators of vessels, it's targeting the infrastructure around that, so the ecosystem, insurance companies, owners, financial transactions, refineries, and so on. And member states are very committed to continue to expand that scope. So, I mean, sanctions are a big part of it. Beyond that, in the specifically maritime domain, there is more that we are doing. One area has been to reach out to those countries that have allowed these ships to sail under their flags, to encourage these ships to deregister sanctioned vessels. And this has been very successful. We have seen a very large number of partner countries removing sanctioned vessels from their flag registries, and also improving the oversight that they have over their flag registries, because some of these countries still struggle with their with the management of this mechanism. And this is important for these countries as part of the international community to make sure international regulations are properly supported. We're also seeing, as a consequence of this, an increase in the number of ships that are sailing without flags. so or with fraudulent flags. And there we have a discussion with our member states to see what more we can do to tackle these ships, which are very much sailing outside of the international recognized framework. A ship sailing without a flag is not entitled to the same protections of freedom of navigation under international law as ships that are operating in line with the normal practice. And then the other area where we're really working very closely with the member states, and my director whom you met before is the EEAS Shadow Fleet Coordinator taking this work forward, is to work with our member states how we can improve or how we can address the habit of these ships to sail without insurance or with inadequate insurance, without the appropriate environmental certification. As Jakob said, these ships sail along our coasts, they sail around the world. It is a huge risk to the environment and to marine safety to have ships operating without the normal regulations. So we're now working very closely with member states to see how we can increase, improve the sort of inspections and controls that are foreseen under international law to make sure that we minimize the risk to our coastal communities and to the maritime environment.
And we can imagine the sharing of knowledge as well when it comes to surveillance as well, cooperation even outside of the European Union.
No, absolutely. And this is, several of the speakers have talked about the importance of maritime domain awareness, situational awareness. This is absolutely at the center of what we're doing, both in terms of identifying the targets for sanctions, both for identifying which are the ships that are registered so we can tackle this, and then also on these kinds of controls. You heard already about CESA and MASUR, which are absolutely essential tools. The European Maritime Safety Agency is also playing an extremely important role, and although the regional hubs are foreseen primarily to protect cables, the same cooperation on information sharing and having an integrated maritime picture will also support coastal states in the work that they have to do against shadow fleet. I just want to add again, this is very much about what we're doing in Europe, but many of these work strands we're trying to explore with partners in other parts of the world as well, because the Russian shadow fleet is not only a threat to our environment, but also in other parts of the world.
Okay, great. Let's get some questions from the public, and hopefully we have some questions all primed up via Slido. So here we have the QR code. Flash that with your phone and put your questions in. What would you want to ask the panel? You can ask a certain panelist, so Alina, if you want to talk about hubs, as you want. Everybody can answer questions as well. We can have an open question and we'll open it up to the panel to see who wants to answer. Do we have a question coming forward straight away? Let's have a look. And just while we're waiting, if somebody wanted to jump in to reinforce something, to add something new, yes, Mikko.
Yes, thank you, Simos. About the shadow fleet. The shadow fleet is a very concrete risk to Finland and to Finnish border guard. Half of the Russian crude oil transported through the maritime means goes 28 kilometers from my window. So they are there. And as we speak, there are several Russian shadow fleet tankers stuck on sea ice in the Gulf of Finland because they are not equipped or manned properly to navigate in ice navigation conditions. So the threat is there, but we do estimate also that there is a long-term threat because the Russian oil is moving using these cheap channels created by the shadow fleet. We do estimate that this threat is there to be for decades or at least decade to come. And I would like to see that when we are implementing new issues to European Union maritime strategy or other Coast Guard functions field or whatever strategy, we should take this long-term threat into account also.
Okay, let's get Alina's thoughts, because I think you wanted to jump in and add something. And also, if the panel can look at the screen and see who wants to answer the question that we have coming up here. But Alina first.
Well, I would also contribute a bit to the shadow fleet conversation with some thoughts. First and foremost, Alison referred already to the hybrid threats that may be posed by the shadow fleet, and also the environmental impact. And this impact is not coming only from the state of the ships per se, but also from the ship-to-ship transfer one should have in mind that we speak of oil tankers that are sometimes in our near our EEZs. So there is an impact on our seas, there is an impact on our ecosystems. And when I say ours, this means Europeans. So that's one thought that I would like everyone to be a little bit more aware of that, because I think sometimes we refer to the shadow fleet as to something that is there, but we have to understand that it's something very concrete and could be stopped. And in order to be stopped, definitely we have the authorities of our member states that can do a lot of things. They can check the papers. They can check the technical situation of a vessel. So there are a lot of things that can happen, and we have to use all these tools in order to basically first reduce the revenues for Russia. Russia is using this shadow fleet in order to support its war to Ukraine. And we have also to eliminate this type of risk factor for our seas, either in the neighborhood of the EU and also for other communities across the globe.
Okay, Alina, thanks very much. We have two questions here. The first one that came in, how well is the implementation of EU MSS going? This will be Alison or Christian, I can imagine. Alison.
I think that's for me. And of course, if you ask a civil servant how well we're implementing our strategy, we will tell you brilliantly, marvelously, everything is going well. The European Maritime Security Strategy, which was updated in October 2023, has an action plan attached to it. And the first thing to say is we are in the process, together with colleagues from DG MARE, who I can see in the audience, preparing the implementation report on this strategy. So during the course of this year, you will have the pleasure of reading another European Union report, which is, of course, always delightful and fascinating reading. But very important to note, first of all, that the Maritime Security Strategy has a lot of actions in it that are for us at the European level, for the EU agencies, but also absolutely critically for the member states. So this is, as Jakob was saying, as I said at the beginning, very much a collective action and a collective responsibility that we have to take forward. But I would say there's been some really interesting work that's gone ahead on a number of the strategic objectives that I can speak to. I don't want to speak on behalf of colleagues from DG MARE, but for example, when we talk about stepping up our activities at sea, one of the strategic objectives, the EU now has 3 executive naval operations under the Common Security and Defence Policy, and our Operation Aspides is, as you can imagine, extremely busy these days, providing close protection to ships passing through the Red Sea, a job that has become rather more challenging since the weekend. So we've had much more activity there. We have also seen 2 maritime security exercises between navies, coast guards and EU agencies. We're very much looking forward to Finland's hosting of the 3rd one later this year. It will be the first time there's a Coast Guard lead. The previous 2 were navies, and these are, I think, really important milestones for us to get our services and agencies working together. And we've seen quite a lot of work, which is linked to other processes as well, on the defence technology side. So linked to the work on drones, looking at uncrewed vessels, looking at maritime flagship projects to allow us to tackle some of these emerging or existing threats. So I think there's been quite a lot that has happened, but as we've also heard, there is always more to be done.
It's never finished. So always a work in progress, Alison, always a work in progress. So thanks very much. Don't forget, on Slido, you can actually vote for the question that you prefer. And I see there's 1 like for the next question. That's what's in place, but what actually is missing? Excuse me, and that's disappeared from the screen, but what EU legislation is missing? What could we actually bring in? Who would want to answer this question? Christian.
I want to start, but I would also be very happy to hear also from industry about this, because it's actually an interesting question. I think now there's very much a mood in Brussels also that not every problem needs a regulation. So I think that's a general mood here. And I think actually the work we have done in the security space is also looking at how can we leverage the specific tools we have in place already, right? Our action plans are not so much about let's go and look at the regulatory path, but more like let's fix the problem with policy, with investments, with technology, with cooperations with the private sector, with the very good work that they're doing in the External Action Service, also with the international partners. So that's, of course, one part of the mood. I also want to say we do actually also have at least some rules in place, which is, of course, the Critical Entities Directive, the Resilience Directive, which is about protecting critical infrastructure more generally, which for us, it's already a good start if we could have it transposed by the member states and have it properly implemented. I think that's already a good place to start. Now, there may be specific things, because as you know, I come from the side of the house that looks at technology. There may be specific needs for legislation, more specifically in the area maritime, which is not my part of the world. So I would also be happy to hear maybe from the panel on that one.
Yeah, I'd like to say, and you can put that two ways. What EU legislation needs to change because the circumstances have changed. And I'll give one example that's causing our membership a lot of sleepless nights, is that the ETS, Emissions Trading Scheme, which did come into play some time ago, and for general shipping it has. So the EU recognized that the offshore fleet doesn't carry cargo, doesn't carry goods, and doesn't carry people. It builds stuff. So there was a dispensation given to the 1st of January 2027, but it says pretty much we're going to tax you, we're going to penalize you for not using clean fuels and not plugging into ports and using electricity. Those fuels don't exist, they're many times more expensive, and there's no shore power. So the ETS is under review, and that's some of the areas we'd like, and it's been very good actually. We're part of the ETS working group, so we're feeding back the challenges. So I think there's also a sort of a review needs to be done. What will hinder either the development of our own clean power, generally, or will force some of, for example, in the offshore fleet, to go and work in other parts of the world that haven't got this legislation, because the EU is leading the game in the world in some of this legislation in decarbonisation. Are we going too fast? Be careful what the consequences are, because we might not be able to build the infrastructure or repair the infrastructure if it happens. So I think there's another thing to relook at some of those legislations where they may be disruptive. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple of questions here. One that I really liked, and it got 5 votes, and it's not anonymous, which we always love, from Benjamin. Well done, Benjamin. 20 points for you. You get an extra cake at the coffee break. Does the solution lie in policy or technology? Who would like to answer this? Someone who hasn't spoken already. I know that DG Connect, yes, of course, would like, yes. We'll start with Christian, and then if somebody else wants to add a thought. Christian.
I mean, obviously, coming from the technology policy DG, I would love to answer this one. I think because we talked so much around maritime situational awareness, etc., and I think it is such a good example of the power of technology. And this is, of course, also why we're so interested in it. Whether it comes to, having sensors on smart cables and looking everything we're doing in this field, whether it's about actually generating proper situational awareness, because at the end of the day, what is that? That is all about data points having to put together. You need technology for this, you need AI for this, and you need to have AI-powered command and control systems for this. So I think there's so much that technology can offer. There are so many areas where we're actually really good at this technology in Europe, and I think these are some of the areas that we're very, very keen on pushing. Now, when you want to push technology, that's where the policy comes into the picture, of course, because what we do with policy is that, we put an emphasis on it. We can drive investments. We can drive the support for it. And that's where policy comes in to help to actually underpin this technological development. So I would say, of course, the solution lies in both.
Yeah, and perhaps, for somebody in the audience, I know there are a couple of startups in the audience, technology companies, and the way in with their technology is maybe thanks to the policy or helped by the policy as well. That's another thought. Alina.
Yes, I would add also, and thank you, Benjamin, for this very interesting question, because there is always the chicken and the egg question. policy, or what is the outcome of the policy, what is the end game in the policy. And I would rather say we need both. We need policy because we need to work having a framework and the goals that should be very clear, and we need definitely technology that will make our life far easier in meeting some of the goals.
Okay, Miko, and then Alison.
Yes, thank you. I would say that we definitely need more technology. We need smart sensors on cables, on sea bottom. We need policies. We need joint policies towards the shadow fleet in a long term. But I would like to add that the human factor is there also, and that is cooperation. We need willingness to cooperate and share information in order these things to be implemented.
Okay, and Alison.
Yeah, I'm less from the technology side, more from the policy side. Technology is bringing us a lot of new opportunities. It's making a lot of things possible that were not possible before. That is also true from the security risk perspective because, I mean, just as an example, artificial intelligence, the development of uncrewed vessels, this makes more of our maritime infrastructure vulnerable than would have been the case in the past. You know, hostile actors can go further, they can go deeper with less direct control. So we have to be able to respond to that. And some of the response to this is technology, and this is why it's so important that the EU has these technology, maritime technology pieces within its defense initiatives in the drones and so on. But from the policy perspective, we also want to be looking at deterring other actors from weaponizing our maritime infrastructure and our maritime space. This is very much a policy thing. This is about international cooperation, and in December, member states approved a declaration on making the best use of international law to tackle the shadow fleet, but also on the protection of critical infrastructure. And this is, if you like, a first step towards trying to establish stronger norms and international standards of behavior amongst international partners about how we behave in the maritime space, knowing that we have this increasing use of the maritime space. That's very much a policy issue, and how also policymakers respond. We need to know what's happening. We need to understand if it's a hostile act, but then we need to understand what is our response mechanism to this, and this may eventually involve, of course, diplomatic and political responses. So this is our end of the piece.
We have to let Ian answer this question as well, and also the requirements to rapidly build capacity to repair power cables, but also the hubs question. I don't know if we have an answer for the hubs question. We have Alina's example. I don't know if there's a quick answer on that, but Ian first, on what we were talking about there, what do we need to rapidly build capacity? Is it the technology? Is it the policy? Also, your thoughts on this question.
Well, it's certainty. I mean, industry, you know, doesn't get invest on ambition. So someone can say we're going to have 50 gigawatts by 2030, but you can't take that to the bank. You can take to the bank firm commitments, firm contracts, and I would say firm government policy, but we've seen too much flip and flop. US is a good example. UK now is, do we build more wind or drill, baby drill in the next election? So I think it's a lot of certainty in policy, but it's not so different from what we're doing on telecoms in the Baltic, potentially. I think we have to start with pilots, but people say to me, what should we build? How much equipment do we need? Well, how quickly do you want to respond? Cable repair is not difficult. It needs a lot of preparation, equipment, budgets, vessels, skills. We haven't talked about it. I have to congratulate the industrial maritime strategy that was published yesterday, or last night even, so I only had a chance to skim it, so I didn't have a chance to look in detail. But all the things we've been asking for, you know, we need people, equipment, we've got the technology, we just need a firm commitment from somebody to mobilize it, and it can be done pretty quickly.
And just very quickly, a final word on hubs, Protector, maybe from Christian. I don't know if you can answer that. Any ideas on the future of hubs? Alina's talking about her neck of the woods. What about in other parts? Yeah. Mediterranean, for example.
So, as I said, we have now we have the call open to establish our regional cable hubs. As we've indicated, we would very much like to see them in every sea basin. I think there's work ongoing in a number of areas to look together, to put it together. So it's also our hope that we mentioned, of course, Baltic Sea specifically in the cable hub or in the cable communication. But I think it would also, of course, be very good to see cable hubs coming also in the Mediterranean.
Okay, and it's great to finish on that note. Collaboration, cooperation. So a work in progress on many fronts. and we'll drill down further into some of these issues, because we're talking about cooperation when it comes to the Coast Guards, and that's our next panel. A warm round of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much. And also a round of applause for you for your Slido questions. I was a little bit nervous that we wouldn't have any questions, but we had some great questions. So thank you all very much, and see you after the coffee break for the second panel. Thank you very much.
I mean, I think, you know,
Somebody from us will be there, but
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If we can retake our seats for our second panel this afternoon. So thank you very much. Let's get cracking and talk about Coast Guard cooperation when it comes to maritime security, of course. And we've been talking about collaboration and cooperation. So welcome back from the coffee break. It's always great to have those breaks, not just for the networking, but also just to get a sugar boost or a coffee boost. Just to add a boost of energy to our conversation. And I said this right at the beginning of the session, I think it's great to take the time to be reflecting on a lot of these issues. And of course, cooperation, enhanced security, that's what it's all about as well, because what exists at the moment, is it enough for what we're facing in very fast changing times? And for this second panel, we're going to set the scene as well. And what I'd like to do is to call on Fabio Borriello from the Italian Coast Guard, Commander Fabio Borriello, for some scene-setting remarks. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. So here we are for the last panel of today, and I hope to not boring you too much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues and dear panelists, it's a privilege and honor for me to address you today this panel on Coast Guard cooperation for enhanced maritime security. Let me thank also personally and on behalf of Italian Coast Guard all the organizers of the event for the opportunity and excellent organization. Cooperation among Coast Guard is not simply a matter of good practice, it is a strategic necessity, especially in the field of maritime security. To understand this, we have to stop thinking of the sea as a series of colored lines on our digital map and start seeing it as a single, fluid ecosystem, intrinsically transnational and interconnected. Threats, we listen today very much, move across jurisdiction, exploit legal gaps, and evolve faster than any single authority performing Coast Guard functions can respond alone. At EU level, a coordinated approach across member states to improve cooperation and promote synergies between civilian and military authorities, enhancing situational awareness, protect critical maritime infrastructure, and ensure freedom of navigation, was faced for the first time with the adoption of a European Maritime Security Strategy in 2014, and then revised in 2023. It's a really comprehensive document and cross-sectoral framework for addressing maritime safety and security challenges. Last year, another cornerstone was posed thanks to the European Ocean Pact to be considered as a concrete call to action to protect marine life and strengthen blue economy, as well as promoting greater transnational cooperation, also giving the mandates for deeper integration between national Coast Guard and agencies. It positioned the ocean as a geopolitical priority, recognizing that governance of our sea basin and environmental protection is impossible without security. The maritime ship and port security is one of the 11 Coast Guard functions described in the handbook of European Coast Guard Coast Guard functions. a list that was originally generated by ECGFF, European Coast Guard Function Forum, a voluntary independent forum bringing together Coast Guard authorities from EU member states, Schengen associated country, and the EU agency with competencies in Coast Guard function. In a broader perspective, the modern maritime security goes far beyond traditional law enforcement, and we know that it is multidimensional functions, including protection of critical maritime infrastructure, ports, offshore platforms, subsea cables, countering terrorism and hybrid threats, tackling smuggling, trafficking, and shadow fleet activities, search and rescue, environmental protection and pollution response, and fisheries control. In other words, if we take in consideration that Europe has almost 70,000 kilometers of coastline and its maritime economy worth more than 600 billion euros, maritime security can be considered as a synonymous with our regional survival and the fundamental resilience of our way of life. The scenario is very complex, risky, and extremely changeable due to deep technology-driven transformation, and it's self-evident that no single authority, national or European, can effectively manage this complexity. Only if the response is rapid, coordinated by sharing information, resources, and operation, countries can save life faster, protect the environment, and strengthen regional security. Coast Guard and agency performing Coast Guard functions are uniquely positioned at the intersection of these civilian and security functions, ensuring continuity of monitoring, investigation, and enforcement across all sea basins of Europe. Nowadays, the cooperation matters more than ever. For this reason, specific framework and platforms such as European Coast Guard Function Forum, Mediterranean Coast Guard Function Forum, the tripartite working arrangement between the three agencies can be considered the evolving landscape of maritime governance and multilateral interagency cooperation, providing mechanisms for information sharing, joint training, sharing of data, assets, and expertise without infringing on national sovereignty. I don't want to spoil anymore, so to conclude, it's time to bridge the gap between policy and operation, acknowledging that the old ways of patrolling doesn't work anymore. For this reason, I'm eager to listen to our distinguished and honored panelists to understand how we can exploit as much as we can from this tool in the near future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Fabio, thank you very much. And we're going to make the most of your expertise by asking you to remain on the stage and to be a part of our panel today. So thank you very much. And speaking about collaboration and cooperation, we should point out that Fabio is actually the chair of the European Coast Guard Functions Forum, Italy. So Fabio, thank you very much. And let me call to the stage now the other panelists, because it's about collaboration, it's about cooperation. And I'd like to call on from Spain, Rafael Hernandez Rodriguez, captain of the Armada, the Navy, Mediterranean Coast Guard Functions Forum, the chair there for Spain. So welcome as well, Rafael. A warm round of applause for Rafael. Thank you very much. Also with us from Frontex, needing no introduction, Frontex, Lars Gardens, Vice Executive Director of Operations at Frontex. Welcome, good to see you, Lars. And from the European, yes, round of applause. And also from the European Maritime Safety Agency, we have Bal Lindet, Head of Department, Digital Service and Simplification. So good to see you as well, Bal. And I've deliberately left Susan for the end because it's great to see a woman on the panel as well. Susan Steele, of course, Executive Director of the European Fisheries Control Agency. So great to have you with us as well, Susan. Ah, great. That's really good to know, actually. It's a bit like in Asia where the surname and the first name is around the other way. So great. And Susan, great to have this, this presence, this feminine presence on a panel. I have to point out that panel 1, though, we had perfect gender balance. Perfect gender balance for the last panel. I wanted to point that out earlier, but didn't. So here we are. So listen, let's start with Raphael, because we heard in the opening about the collaboration, cooperation, from Fabio, the importance of that. And we do have these forums, don't we? The Coast Guard Functions Forum. So for you, Raphael, you know, the importance of this cooperation. And, you know, it's not just, it's also for the Mediterranean, for example. We have the Mediterranean Sea Functions Forum as well. So just tell us about the importance of that, how that works in practice, and how that's helping with your work.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. The Mediterranean Sea is vital for the global prosperity. There is a sea line of communication. There is a strategic choke point, the Strait of Gibraltar. It's a space that connects two continents and different cultures, and it's a ground for several blue economy sectors, tourism, fishing, or maritime transport. But also it's a space for illegal cross-border crime, illegal fishing, or environmental threat. So that's why the Mediterranean Coast Guard Forum is focused in multilateral cooperation in a wide range of maritime safety and security aspects, trying to seek solution to a common problem for all the Coast Guard authorities. The framework for this forum is a close relationship with the European agencies and other regional organizations specializing in maritime matters. The aim of this forum is share the best practice, experience, and knowledge in key areas for the Mediterranean. For example, monitor and protect the critical underwater infrastructure, sea line of communication, or international cooperation in interagency cooperation against illicit traffic or environmental threat. In this present strategic context, the Mediterranean Coast Guard Forum has a lot of work to do. We must contribute to international effort to preserve the maritime safety and security of the Mediterranean Sea. So we must increase our mutual knowledge and coordination with the European agencies to enhance our capability and action at sea. Lastly, I would like to highlight the 2026 Spanish presidency of the Mediterranean Coast Guard Forum, titled One Mediterranean, Coordinating the Maritime Security and Safety in a Complex Scenario. Is strongly focused in operational cooperation based on interoperability of operational center among the different Coast Guard authorities, and develop the transferable best practice and build mutual trust among the member states, all in this complex maritime scenario.
Okay, Raphael, thanks very much. Let's go to Fabio, because, you know, obviously the Coast Guard Functions Forum concerns you as well. How is it working? Is it easy to actually bring the Coast Guards together? Are we just talking about cooperation on a technical level, or is it actually joint action at sea, for example?
Yeah, at European level, we have the possibility through the ECGFF, that was, as I said, a forum that was born in 2009, and then it became a lot of step forwards were made in the past years, and now we are still evolving, thanks to the support of the European Commission, the agencies, and from an operational perspective, the cooperation in this sense matters because at the bilateral, but especially in this case, the multilateral cooperation permit to avoid the duplication of efforts multiplies the capacity, and of course we have the possibility to deploy more assets from different across countries, from assets and naval assets and air assets, broaden the scope of a mission. So with the one asset, we also can, of course, from different countries, we can in a single operation perform different Coast Guard functions, and then there is the possibility when we have the more countries, more Coast Guard agencies involved in our process to share the burden. To share the burden is not only meaning that we share capabilities, share assets, but also share responsibilities. And this is key in our mutual trust, as the captain says, also between agencies and national Coast Guards. And also the cooperation is useful because driven the innovation in this case is essential. This morning we spoke a lot about the connectivity and also regarding the new technologies based on the artificial intelligence, on the unmanned system and so on. And some concrete example of cooperation came from, for example, the handbook. I mentioned before the handbook on Coast Guard functions, which is a document that was adopted in 2021 by the Commission with a recommendation, and this document is the baseline because for the cooperation and collaboration and coordination among Coast Guard authority, we have a list of national competent authority based on Coast Guard function for each country, and also a list of services that can be asked to the agency, for example, surveillance services, satellite services, or specialized training. Also, multipurpose maritime operations are also a concrete example of our cooperation at the multilateral level from an operational point of view, and we are pushing a lot, but we can talk much more deeper on this on MMO.
And I just wanted to ask Rafael as well, because perhaps not many people know about the forum, about the cooperation. Are we actually increasingly making use of that structure? Is it something that's really been internal, or are we going to see more visibility when it comes to this? For a broad audience, of course. Of course, you guys talk about this a lot. But is there a lot of visibility with this?
Yes, we're taking the maximum benefit of the coordination mechanism with the European agency to implement all this European strategy oriented to increase the maritime safety and security in the Mediterranean Sea. We are in close coordination with operational center of Italy, France, in order to build a maritime situation awareness robust.
Okay, Rafael. Susan, let's come to you, because this question of cooperation at the European Fisheries Control Agency, obviously you're involved in this as well, the collaboration, the cooperation as well.
So I think I was looking at the audience, and I think, first of all, a huge thank you to everybody who's here, to Seamus for your energy, and to everyone who's here, because it's the last session of the day, but I think it really underpins everything in European values. And I was looking at the room, I was thinking, how do I describe this? And I was saying to the audience, if you look to the left and the right, Sparks has these amazing kaleidoscopes going on the wall. They've had the effect of hypnotizing me into sleep, earlier on in the day, yeah. But if you look at them, this is really where we were in 2016. So in 2016, Frontex, EMSA, and EFCA, we were all doing our core mandates, and each of us has very important core mandates. For us, it's fisheries control. And in 2016, our mandates were adjusted to bring in Coast Guard functions. And one of the work that we were doing there, and I just have to say, since I've been in the agency, it is the most incredible working relationship between the agencies and between our member states as well in these Coast Guard functions. So if you look earlier on, we heard about the 11 Coast Guard functions. But if you look at every single one of our member states, the Coast Guard functions are done differently. And when we look at that as a picture in Europe, it's like the kaleidoscopes on the wall. It's 640 different bodies throughout Europe. And so one of the first pieces of work that we did as 3 agencies with all of the member states was to set up a website
europa.coastguard.eu, and you can look at that and you'll see a mapping of which Coast Guard bodies and which countries do which. So the first thing was look at what's there. Then we started to see how can we work together. So we had funded by DG MARE, and again, a huge thanks. I know Christos will be doing the closing at the end, and Iglika is there, but a huge thank you to DG MARE. We've had a funding where we've allowed exchanges between different Coast Guards. So we had, for example, we've had a lot of exchanges in Italy, in Spain, in all of the member states, in Turku, in Finland, where all of different Coast Guards were looking at the models for how you find somebody who's lost in the water. And that type of shared experience, shared trainings, that is the fundamental underpinning of what European Coast Guard functions is about. So we've had this capacity building that involves everybody, but another step further has been mixed multi-purpose operations. So what is a mixed multi-purpose operation? I don't know if we had a quiz on Slido, would many people in the audience understand it, but it's where we go to a sea basin with everybody from every Coast Guard function. So in the Adriatic, in La Manche, in different areas throughout Europe, we have run these where all of the Coast Guard bodies are working together with EMSA, with Frontex, with EFCA, and we're looking at the oceans from everything. And how does this fit into maritime security? There's a saying in Japan that I've used ever since we were in Japan, which is, alone we're a drop of water, and together we're an ocean. So if you look again at the kaleidoscope, where were we in 2016 with the Coast Guard functions? We were 640 separate bodies and 3 separate agencies. Where are we now? That kaleidoscope, if you were going to look at it now, would be just one of the bright lights on the stage. And that really is what we're seeing from the Coast Guard functions and bringing it together.
Yeah.
Sorry, Seamus, to talk so much.
No, and actually I can imagine that when the structures were set up, we were looking at what-if scenarios. This is there just in case we need that joint action, but perhaps increasingly we are actually seeing that in real terms, the visibility of the structure. Great. Let's bring in Frontex as well, because obviously a major player, talking about visibility. We speak a lot about Frontex in the media. Obviously, the geopolitical situation, perhaps even more in the coming months, etc. Lars, your perspective on this. So, we hear about this collaboration, 640 organizations, bodies across Europe coming together. Frontex, what's your take on that? Where do you fit into all of this?
Well, thank you very much first for the invitation today. I'm really happy to be here. However, I actually was hoping, due to the weather, that we meet on the helicopter landing deck, and now I find myself in the submarine, which is okay because it's compensated by all the nice people.
I would happily join you on the helicopter deck.
So Frontex, as one of the actors of EU coordination on Coast Guard function, as Susan has very well explained already, we recognize, of course, a lot of challenges in our original own remit, like mass migration combined with massive rescue operations needed, cross-border crime, but also fairly new developed threats or challenges like hybrid tactics that were very well discussed in the panel before. And as a response connected to what Susan has already said, we have like one of our major activities is multi-purpose maritime operations together with our sister agencies EFCA and EMSA, which are very effective. They are in different basins around Europe. And sometimes they are usually rather seasonal in nature, so for a few months. And sometimes, like it happened in the last year when we did the first MMO in the Baltic Sea, we recognized that a few months is not enough due to the new challenges that we have there. So we decided that we want to offer to the member states surrounding the Baltic Sea that we start a fully fledged joint operation there, which we are currently planning, and it will start in a few months with quite a lot of assets like 13 maritime assets, 3 aerial assets combined with our Eurozone fusion services like satellites and vessel traction. So I think we can respond also to some of the challenges that we have discussed in the first panel, where I actually ask a question that obviously didn't make it to the internal evaluation cycle.
I'm so sorry.
Which was, what can Frontex do? Well, this is a very decisive point because there's currently a new regulation negotiated or planned, and it would help us a lot to bring these hybrid challenges in our regulation. Because how we do it right now, we are patrolling, we are monitoring, and when we see something, we call somebody who can deal with this, like the Navy, which is already a lot, but it would help us if it's also a clear mandate. Apart from that, as most probably know, we have the standing core with currently between 3,000 and 4,000 border guards around Europe. We will in the next 2 years go to 10,000 and then beyond that. And originally we have focused a lot on land borders, air borders, and the landings. And in the future, I believe we will cover much more in the maritime domain, because currently we are coordinating the assets that the member states give us, but at the end of the day, there is not much more in the water, actually. So the idea is that we focus more on training our own crews, our own staff, also with special functions like rescue swimmer, drone pilots in the maritime domain, captains at some point, technicians, and so on. And also, hopefully, will buy our own assets at some point. For this year, I have at least ordered 14 RIPs to start with, but I think this is the future, and that is actually a great coincidence that Fabio is here, because our contingent commanders, it's like sort of a battalion, we brought them last year the first time on offshore patrol vessel of the Italian Coast Guard, and did the team training 1 week with them, but also to make them focus more on the maritime area, and it was so successful, and thanks again, Fabio, for making this possible, and we will repeat it this year. Thank you very much.
And could we actually be looking towards a permanent presence? This, joint action that's actually more permanent, because you talked about these short stints becoming longer, a few months. Could we see something that's edging towards something more permanent?
Well, the joint operation in the Baltic Sea that we are planning will be fully fledged all over the year.
Okay, interesting and good to know. Cooperation, Lindet, and I know that we've put Bal first, but it's Lindet, the first name. When we talk about cooperation, and we covered this in the first panel, it's not just on the level we're talking about here, it's also in terms of data. Cooperation when it comes to data, cooperation when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to knowledge and expertise. And we know that, for example, you at the European Maritime Safety Agency, you're talking a lot about CISE, and just for those, just a reminder, the Common Information Sharing Environment. Just talk to us about that and how that can be used, for example, by the Coast Guards, by Frontex, and also by Susan's organization. So data, and also the knowledge, expertise.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. First of all, I also would like to acknowledge the very good cooperation between the 3 Coast Guard agencies. It's really a pleasure. Susan explained very well from where we came and where we are today. But I also take up the point of Lars to say, okay, we started to develop the multi-purpose maritime operations, which is very good because it was bringing capacities of the 3 agencies together in a very efficient and effective way. But now with the maritime security challenge so heavily on our plate, we need to take it a step further. And also can underline what Lars is saying, we should move towards a more permanent effort from our side. For example, in the field of surveillance, where, of course, having increased surveillance, visible surveillance in this case, will also lead to be a deterrent. And I think the more surveillance that we do, the better it is, the more reactive we can be if things go wrong, because we detect sooner and then we can also react sooner. When it comes to data exchange, yes, indeed, it's very important. The common information sharing environment has the charm that it respects all the systems that are already in place. A lot of communities have their own systems and prefer to continue to work with their own systems. But we can top it up. We can exchange information between customs, border police, maritime safety, but also navies. And there, CISA, I think, is an excellent platform that will allow for this exchange. Also, with the geopolitical tensions growing, we need to exchange more data also with the military. So civil military capability to exchange information becomes more and more important. So with CISA, we are now moving towards a classified network, which from a technical point of view should be ready in the second quarter of this year, which will allow for civil military, but also between civil and civil, to exchange more classified information, which gives them a kind of secured, trustworthy environment to share more data. And I think we need that incentive to get out of our silos and change more data between ourselves. And I think certainly the classified network will be a great step and is also highly needed in this area where maritime security developed from a side dish to a main dish.
Okay, and we talked there about CISA, but also there's Eurosure. Everybody uses that, everybody's on board with that. I know Frontex, I think you're involved in that as well. CISA as well, important for you. How is that changing things for you at sea on the ground, Lars? Yeah.
Well, Eurosure is a common information system where we have all the events, single events that are happening at the air, land, or sea borders. And CISA would extend this now, so we can bring in our information, and we will also gain information, because this is focused then on the maritime domain, of course. And we will benefit from that also by the inputs of the navies, where we have currently no access to.
Okay, great. Susan, I wanted to come back to you as well, because one of the word cloud points in the first panel was IUU, which I know you talk a lot about. You're involved heavily in this. Tell us what's being done on that. I think 3 times in the word cloud: stop IUU, fight IUU, and also, just because we have a very broad audience, illegal, unreported, unregulated. Susan.
So Europe very, very strongly has a zero tolerance to IUU fishing. So with all of us in Europe, I mean, the first thing we have to do is look after our European oceans. And EFCA's role has been in the harmonization and coordination of fisheries control. And our work has continuously, for the last 20 years, been working with all of the member states to get a unified approach to having a zero tolerance to IUU fishing. Unfortunately, fish can give huge financial benefits to illegal operators, and fish are very much a shared resource. And so one illegal operator will damage everybody. And this is why it's paramount that we work together when we're looking at IUU fishing. We also then have a responsibility that in Europe we're not importing illegal fishing as well, and this is why the Commission works so hard continuously to make sure that we've got very, very stringent and tight controls on the fish that we're bringing in. We have as well a responsibility for all of our fleets wherever they're fishing in the world. So with IUU fishing and the role of the agency, one of the key things that all of the agencies are doing all of the time is we're making sure that we make things better for our member states, that we make things more efficient, that we make sure that no country or member state is reinventing the wheel. And that's why it's so important with the work that we're doing with capacity building, with the training, and with the work that is well established within all of the sea basins in Europe and the Indian Ocean. But I just want to tell you, Seamus, a tiny bit about some of the extra work that we've been doing with projects in West Africa and in the Indian Ocean, soon to be in Central Africa as well. These projects are where we're working with countries there, taking what we've learned from throughout Europe, looking at the legal frameworks, looking at the FMCs or fishery monitoring centres, looking at the vessel monitoring systems, and then having active training and capacity building. So EFCA is working in the IUU fishing hand in hand with DG MARE and the Commission, working with all of our European member states, working as well with the non-EU countries here, and then working with these projects as well. So we're making a difference, but it's an area like everything we're doing at the moment and everything we're doing together, where we can't stop, we can't let our guard down. So we have to continue to work on it. And I know that I'm very, very proud of the work that we're doing, and very proud of the approach to zero IUU fishing.
Okay, Susan, thanks very much. So we're spreading the net very wide indeed when it comes to expertise. Let's go back to Fabio, because obviously, you know, we have these projects in place, these initiatives. I was asking Raphael how easy it is to bring people together. What are the main challenges for you? What's on your list when you look at the priority of things that we need to improve, enhance, make better, especially with the environment changing so fast, the geopolitical situation changing so fast?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, to approach this kind of situation, of course, as we already spoken, is first of all to be prepared. So the way forward for in the cooperation is to approach with an adaptive model. So and much more moving from the collaboration to total integration. So not acting together, but also acting as a one. This will be maybe one step forward to move and to be more effective. And then also, maybe it's obvious, but that digitalization is really a key element. First of all, because we are moving from an old style of sailor there should be more and more as a data analyst, for sure. So we are going from the respond and search and rescue to predict and prevent. So more and more in the future, we will be the expertise should be focused on this, and also resilient, of course, the resilience in order to respond as quick as we can and in the proper way to any kind of threats and that happens at sea. So the tools that we have, in process, for example, multi-purpose maritime operations are the starting point, let's say, because we should move from this to be more capable, more interoperable, and this element, in this case, will be focusing also on the education and training. This is one of the key elements that we are bringing in our chairmanship during the SDGFF. So education and training should be more and more common, based on a common standard, a sectoral qualification framework, to have common core curricula, so to have the basic education for all the Coast Guard officers around the world, around Europe, and also related to each Coast Guard function.
Is there actually an issue for all of you, this question of talent coming into the ranks, expertise, the employment issues, training, you mentioned training, etc. Are we actually looking around for staff? Susan, Lindette, what's the situation, Frontex as well? Do we have enough people actually joining your organizations in this fight? Who wants to answer this?
Well, I'll come in quickly and then I'll pass over because I know they've the same. I think at the moment it's the opposite. I think speaking to people, and I know I'm a mother of many children who are in that age bracket of looking for jobs, we're in a world where there isn't as much access to employment as there was. So we're getting very, very high numbers of incredibly talented people applying to the agency. And we're very, very lucky with the team that's in the agency. I feel that we've got the most phenomenal people. So we're the exact opposite. I wish we had more jobs to bring in some of the incredible people that I see. And through the Blue Book traineeship, we have interns that are trainees coming in. And again, the young people that are coming up are incredible. I just wish I had more jobs to give them. I'll just pass on.
Yeah, and actually the question behind that came from Fabio, because he talked about, needing to be a data analyst. You're on the Coast Guard ship and you've got to be a data analyst as well, and maybe that's where the question comes from. Do we have, in terms of expertise, do we have the right qualifications, the right talent?
Well, what Susan says is certainly true in her remit. For us, it's the other way around. we are trying to get to 10,000 standing corps by 2027, which is, if I see that right, next year. And the president of the commission is aiming for 30,000 after that. And these are numbers that are not easy to employ. Especially some of our staff is seconded from the member states for several years or for several months. There are depending different categories. But now with the new regulation and the further extension, we see that there are also some concerns of the member states that we are stealing their stuff and that there is sort of some brain drain, which means for us, we can not only rely on maybe former police and border police officers. We also have to look to the young people that just finished school or university, which means then we need a longer training. So we have to think a little bit about our models, but just for the representatives of member states here, we are not going to steal your police officers. We will find our own ones, and we have some creative models there in mind, but I bet there is enough crime for all of us. Thank you.
But last, correct me if I'm wrong, I have seen some documentation, I think maybe in the media, you're embedding Frontex officers on board ships and vessels in member states. So that, and you know, it's like this mixed crew concept. So making sure that, you know, that we have people from different agencies on board the one vessel and we're not sending 7 or 8, 9 ships to one incident. So tell us about that, because that's...
Yeah, indeed, of course, the challenges are increasing, and also the member states have only limited resources, technical and human resources, and sometimes they have more technical resources than human resources, and so we started to train more connected with what I said in the beginning, training more crews. We have done a pilot just last year in the Black Sea together with Romania on a Maltese coastal patrol boat, and trained our first crews there that are now in the Mediterranean on Italian and Romanian vessels indeed, and we will continue this also with specialized profiles, and at some point also on 100% Frontex boats and vessels. That's going to be the future.
Okay, excellent. And I just wanted to just remind you, think about your questions for our panel. Think about, we're going to be having Slido, so your questions will go in. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. I did have a couple of complaints that some questions went in, excuse me, and there was no, it didn't get through, but we will try our best. Yes, I also wanted to come to you, Lindet, because you're also doing lots of other things when it comes to maritime safety. We can also talk about security. Tell us about some of the other initiatives, the other projects, maybe on a different level, something we haven't already talked about, maybe a category or a sector or an initiative that's a little bit different.
Before going into that, you were talking about new skills that are required and new jobs.
And nice and close to the microphone, sorry, this one that's quite soft.
I think we are a bit in a similar situation as EFCA. There are brilliant people out there, but there are not enough jobs. But we need new people with the new skills of today. So we have now a new mandate which entered into force beginning of the year. And part of it is the European Maritime Awareness Center. And for the European Maritime Awareness Center, we want to take more out of our data. So indeed, it means that we need to have a data analyst, a data scientist. We need people that are good in artificial intelligence. And there are very much skilled young people that can do the job. But you also have to be able to have the positions. We are not in the same luxury as Frontex that need thousands of people and can have them. But of course, we need to build up that capability in Europe. And I think we will do our best from our side, but I think it even goes beyond. I think certainly for the maritime security domain, we need to have an intelligence capability where we take out the data sets that we have and turn them into actionable information. That we will do from our side for the data sets that are governed by EMSA. But of course, Frontex also has very interesting data. So at a certain moment, it will go beyond our agency, and I think that's also a field where agencies can work together to also increase the EU capability of having actionable intelligence in the field of maritime security.
Okay, Lindet, thanks very much. Maybe we can go back to Raphael, because we're talking about challenges. if you were able to fix something quickly, what's top of your list in terms of things we need to improve on? Maybe when it comes to the cooperation at the European level, but also, in Spain, what's top of your list? And also, given the current situation we're facing in the world.
Okay, thank you for your question. Well, the hybrid threat in the present scenario is changing the way of Coast Guard authorities are carry out the action at sea. We are talking about disruption of maritime traffic, legal activities under a complex legal framework, or under the right to freedom navigation, or cross-border crime. So from my point of view, all of these actions are executed in a more or less coordinated way in a hybrid scenario to destabilize a particular country or a specific maritime area. And so from Coast Guard, Mediterranean Coast Guard Forum, there are three main lines of action to counter this kind of threat and risk. First, we must increase our shared knowledge of maritime environment by increasing the exchange of information among the operational center of the Coast Guard authorities in order to build a common and robust maritime situational awareness. Also, we must share the tactical experience, operational procedures, and a national initiative to reinforce the international cooperation. Secondly, we need a stronger cooperation with European agencies and member states in certain specific areas in the Mediterranean Sea, as maritime surveillance, deterrent presence, or maritime policing, all in order to increase our capabilities to tackle this kind of threat. And finally, the technology. The technology is a game changer. Tackle the crime network using satellite using submarine or autonomous or remote autonomous vehicles, require increase our maritime security capabilities based on a flexible decision process, reinforcing the integration of intel gathering using air and surface units, and employment of smart sensor or data processor with artificial intelligence.
Okay, Rafael, I want to also just keep talking about the challenges, which also raises opportunities for many people. But just on that point about technology, because I know that I've spoken to a couple of people over this week about what is the pathway to getting their innovation, their technology towards organizations like yours. Is it easy? We know that there are partnerships and collaboration on the European level with the European Commission. Lindet, what is the pathway? If somebody does have some fantastic innovation, we want to keep Europe ahead when it comes to security, safety. What's the pathway? What do they have to do?
I think in Frontex does the same, that we follow closely innovation. Innovation is very important, so we look at opportunities of pre-operational services. That sounds a bit vague, but I mean that there are companies that are developing interesting new stuff. For example, in satellite monitoring, there are also startups, new companies that develop new capabilities that, of course, will strengthen also our domain awareness. So from our basic task that we have, we look what industry can offer, and when it is mature enough and operationally enough, we want to include it in our services towards member states. So the scanning of opportunities is very important, having this dialogue with industry that comes up with innovative ideas, and to see how we can leverage them and bring them towards the member states in services that gives added value at the EU level.
Can people contact directly the Coast Guards or Frontex or your organization, Susan, if we have a great idea with technology innovation, or is it a bit more complicated than that? Lars or Susan?
So when we look at innovation, innovation is such an exciting, looking at how do we do things in new ways. And with innovation, I think the rule that they use in private industry is you fail fast, you fail cheap, is the kind of thing that people always say. So you want to see what's out there, what's working, what works. And what we find in Europe, we have incredible work by all of our member states, and we've got incredible work by companies in the member states. So if we look, I don't know if we take the Spanish Navy, they're doing exciting things with drones at the moment. I'm just picking one example, the Italian as well. But one of the most important things for us as agencies is how do we make sure that every single one of our member states is learning from the others, not just learning from the things that work, but not repeating the things that don't work. So that is a really key role for us in the agencies when we're working with the member states. And how do we do that? We run workshops where we look at, these are the innovative technologies, have a look, learn from each other, and one member state will say, well, look, we've tried this, and, you know, I'm making up an example, you know, the drones went into the sea, or, you know, this didn't work, or we tried this data exchange, or we tried this camera system, and they will discuss and learn. So when you've got things that work, so really with the companies, it's not just you come to an agency, it's working within the member states. And the other thing is, what we've all used as well are industry days. So we will be holding some in October in EFCA. And what you're doing there is you're saying to member states, these are possible solutions for the things that we're trying to do, and how do we do that? So we work, there's a very innovative mindset as well in DG MARE. We've heard about the Ocean Eye at the start of this week. We can see that things are exciting and going forward. But it's not that people come in with an idea to an agency, it's that we try it and then we share between the member states. This is speaking from our point of view in fisheries control, but the most important thing for all of us is nobody is reinventing the wheel, and that's where the agencies have a really key role to play, is this harmonization and coordination, and I think efficiency. Particularly at the moment, none of us have ever moved so fast. It's like the music that we were dancing to. The orchestra has had a coffee break, and they've all come back, Seamus, full of fast music. The dance pace has changed. We're moving faster, and to do that, if you're looking at this fail fast, fail cheaply, that's where the agencies are going to come in. They're going to come in for making sure we're on a level playing field. I'm going to hand over to Lindhart because he's amazing at this. So over to you.
It's a 1 minute waltz. It's a 1 minute waltz, Susan. It's getting faster and faster. The music's speeding up. Yes.
I fully agree with what Susan just said. Also, we develop a lot of functionalities. For example, we offer the maritime picture to Frontex and to EFCA. And when we develop new functionalities based on user requirements, we share that immediately with the others. So what we develop, there's new possibilities, new algorithms to detect unusual behavior, for example, it will be automatically available to our sister agencies. And that, I think, is also a kind of efficient use of funds at EU level, that we are not keeping things for ourselves, but that we are collectively using the benefits of new innovation.
Okay, Lars?
I like your question about the hotline for good ideas. Do we have this? No, we don't, because then I would have every day 10 companies, business actors that come up with new ideas, and I believe everybody's own idea would be the best one. So we have to make our own decisions in that regard, and we are a young agency. Perhaps we are not the smartest yet, but we know the smartest people, and this is also our role, to connect all the brains of the member states' experts and then come to conclusions, and then we start a regular vetting procedure, and and we forget about the hotline because we can't cope with that.
You'd be inundated. But these workshops and connecting in the member states with the universities, with the researchers, absolutely. Listen, we're going to be getting questions from the public, so let's connect with the Slido. So these are questions you can put in. You can vote on the questions. So the question we love goes straight to the top. And look, already 2 questions in there. 2 votes. What should we go with? What should we go with? And we also want to, continue talking about challenges. So let's go for the top question first. How can the European Union enhance cooperation among its member states to address the challenges? Piracy, illegal trafficking, maritime terrorism, bringing in some terms we haven't already spoken about. Who wants to start with this? Susan?
I'm so sorry, I keep doing the starting, I apologize, sorry. So if we have a quick look at this one, when we were talking about the 11 Coast Guard functions, and if you have a look at the website while you're sitting in the audience, you'll see that this is exactly what we're doing in the cooperation. The working together with all of the Coast Guard functions is really addressing not just these challenges, because they're at sea. There are so many potential challenges. Piracy, illegal trafficking of people, illegal trafficking of money, illegal trafficking of drugs, maritime tourism, illegal fishing. These are among the many Coast Guard functions that we're working together so strongly on. And I'm sure Spain or Italy will be able to come in, or Frontex or on that one.
Yeah, who would like to come in here? Because it's a great question. It kind of encapsulates everything, doesn't it?
I think a lot of the capabilities are quite universal. So once you do domain awareness, once you have a drone program, once you have satellite monitoring program, you can use it for all governmental purposes at sea, whether it's piracy or illegal trafficking or maritime terrorism, and there are many more. I think the challenge is to develop it and then to share it so that we are not reinventing the wheel multiple times at European level. So that I think is very important, that we have this kind of sharing approach. Once there is a capability developed, and that's quite universal, also our drones are being used for narco trafficking detection, but also for detecting illegal migrants, because you cannot predict upfront what your drone will see at sea. It can also be an illegal fishing case. So in that sense, the technologies are quite neutral in terms of the task, and they can feature to help multiple tasks to be completed. And that's why it is important that we exchange the information between ourselves. So when an aircraft, patrolling aircraft of Frontex spots an oil pollution, it will report that oil pollution to EMSA. When we will see illegal migrants crossing with our drone, then we will inform Frontex or the member state responsible. So that's, I think, a very important principle on which basis we are cooperating.
Okay, there's a question there for last, but maybe just quickly, Fabio or Raphael, on this question of, you've already got the cooperation, we've got the forums, etc. But what could the European Union do even better? What could they do to enhance that cooperation, to build on it?
Okay, I think the Coast Guard Forum, North Atlantic European Function Forum or Mediterranean Forum are excellent arena to share procedure experience, to boost the joint training, and for the nation to take advantage of the coordination procedure with the European agencies to reinforce our national capabilities with the European asset to improve the maritime situation awareness and the action at sea.
Okay, Raphael, Fabio?
Yeah, very quickly, yes. I believe that we are moving in the same path. To address these issues on piracy, illegal trafficking, and maritime terrorism, European Union should maybe, as we said before, to have a procurement at European level on the new technologies can be a point to discuss, but of course it's a matter of policy and national issue, and of course to continuing with the cooperation among our national agencies in order to perform the better way the surveillance of our seas, and so European Union must continue to support through the agencies our activity at sea in order to be present and increase our readiness at sea.
Okay, Fabio, last, can you actually answer this question?
Well,
and regions, looking ahead to the new mandate, Frontex plans to allow regions to directly activate the border control mechanism, and it's a question.
I would like to first answer to the question that was there before, because it lists actually some of our core mandates, like the variety of cross-border crime. And the question was, I think it's gone now. No, yeah, it's gone.
How can the European Union enhance the cooperation to meet the challenges?
Because that is very simple, and I can answer that. More Frontex, means more cooperation with the member state. And we cannot complain, we actually have enough support from the member states, from the Commission, we get a lot of support, but this is a development that doesn't go overnight, of course. So now I did what the politicians do here. I answered a question that I wasn't asked and didn't answer the question that I was asked, because to be honest, I don't really understand it. Maybe somebody can help me out and rephrase it, because I don't know what is meant by regions to directly activate border control mechanism. I don't know.
Yes, and if you don't understand the question, none of us do. And maybe somebody, I don't know if, we don't have a microphone in the audience, but if you want to discuss that, maybe you can ask directly Lars after the panel, and that can be a discussion you can have afterwards. It needs a little bit of context, perhaps. I love that question. What's the problem that keeps you awake at night? Well done, Benjamin. Another 20 points. Who is Benjamin? Where is he? Great question. Yes. And he's a New Zealander. He's a New Zealander. He's a Kiwi, of course, so straight to the point. So absolutely. He's earned about 50 points so far today. Should we go for that? Or I also do like the question, and let's come to Benjamin's question in just a moment, because I do like the other question. And you know, you talked about this, Susan, the work outside of the European Union, but the advice on improving the cooperation and, you know, with non-EU countries. And as the person says there, threats do not respect jurisdictions. Susan, you can answer that. And maybe if somebody else has another experience, maybe you can develop on that, because it's not easy working outside of the context of the European Union.
So to the person who says that, I just want to say I completely agree with you. Fish don't know where there's any boundaries, and so when we talk about fishing, it's always really important. Thor Heyerdahl, who was a famous Norwegian explorer, once wrote that the boundaries at sea exist only in the minds of men, and this was his take on it as well. So definitely with both fish and with the threats, it is a real thing. However, with non-European countries and the cooperation, if we speak in, I'm going to just speak on the mandate of EFCA. At the moment, with the Coast Guard cooperations, I think really well put in relation to the different Coast Guard functions forums. So, for example, in the North Atlantic Coast Guard Forum, it isn't just European countries, it's all of the countries that are around the North Atlantic. So with the Coast Guards, this relationship is already being built. With EFCA, we work a lot with non-EU countries. So we will have in the Mediterranean inspectors from other countries on board the vessels. We're very, very grateful to Tunisia, to Morocco, to some of to Algeria for inspectors that we've had on the vessels. We have the projects that are working with the 13 West African countries, and then moving down to the East African countries, the work that's happening in the Indian Ocean. Always, always the cooperation is essential, because the threats don't respect it. But there is very, very good cooperation, and through the regional fishery management organizations as well, there is cooperation with non-European countries and passing on of information and of learning. I'm going to hand to the other agencies for talking about the non-fisheries, because they have an awful lot on there. So
yeah, and because we say that we need to improve the cooperation, but actually, what do we need to do to actually make that easy? Is it easy actually? How do we open the doors? We had a session this morning on diplomacy. For Frontex, outside of the European Union, how are you making sure that people are actually welcoming you, to work with them?
Well, firstly, Susan, I agree with you, and I think no fish is illegal, but fishing might be illegal, and the same goes for migration. And that brings me to exactly that very question you asked me. I don't want to overstretch the topic and go to migration, but this is one of our core tasks, and it is connected to the maritime domain. And indeed, I believe in the future, the cooperation, and when I say cooperation, means joint operations with third countries, will be increased significantly. We're doing this already with a lot of countries, with all Balkan countries, with executive powers, by the way. I believe this will also be outside Europe, perhaps, the future, because it's, of course, better to deal with the migration where it starts in order to help the people that are really in need of protection and help them to have a safe journey to Europe, the ones that are really in need of protection. This means cooperation with non-EU countries is one of our absolute priorities.
And how do we do that? How do we get them to cooperate? What is the trick? Are we just smiling? We're giving them good information? Is it financial? Is it support? Is it actually, you know, a two-way system where, you know, it benefits you, it benefits us as well? How do we sell it to make sure that we're cooperating with them?
Well, we have currently third country operations with a lot of EU candidacy countries. They are by nature very cooperative, yeah, because they aim for a further integration, and actually working together with us is European integration. It is a little more difficult outside Europe, so it is necessary to also give something in return, which can be capacity building, training, maybe at some point also connected to developing funds out of my remit. Political decision, but might be a possibility.
Okay, I've actually decided to keep the what keeps you awake at night question right for the very end, because that's a nice way to finish the panel. But we do have a question here for Italy and Spain. How do you see Frontex's standing core, 10,000, contributing to the protection of critical maritime infrastructure, port security operations, for example? Does that resonate with both of you? Hopefully we understand the question. Fabio?
Yeah, of course, as Lars was saying, they are implementing several assets, and also the possibility to have more and more people on the ground or on the sea will be, of course, much more presence, and to have the possibility to increase our potentially to increase our presence at sea and protect after we are, for example, in Italy, we are doing now a risk analysis process on our critical maritime infrastructure, and it will be useful to share information with all the people on the ground to protect the infrastructure. And of course, more people we have on board, more people can more eyes and more people that can surveil and protect the infrastructure.
Okay, Raphael?
Just one of the problems of the protection of critical underwater infrastructure is all the actors are involved, private and public actors, and so it's clear that the European Agency and Frontex is one of these key actors to protect underwater infrastructure. But from our point of view, the contribution of Frontex will be in terms of maritime surveillance, intel gathering, and maybe not in a port security operation that is more in close national water. So we are happy to integrate Frontex in our intel gathering process and maritime surveillance.
Okay, Raphael, thank you very much. Lars?
Yeah, we're very much connected to what I outlined in the beginning. The first step is this fairly large operation in the Baltic Sea, where we patrol, where we have monitoring out of the air and also by satellites. And we can, of course, control if it is a fisher vessel. If it's a Navy vessel from a non-EU state, we better call somebody who is better equipped for that. So we can watch and report, but it would be really beneficial for us if there is a clear mandate in the next regulation, and that's what we are actually open for.
Okay, great. We talked about challenges, possibly raising opportunities as well. Susan, I wanted to ask you, what's the project that you're currently working on that excites you the most, that gives you optimism? Because, you know, it's a bit of a gloomy world we're living in at the moment for many.
Can I answer Benjamin's question with that as well?
Oh.
Or will I ruin your
Can we?
whole planning?
No, we'll
I'll
ruin
hold
the. It'll
Benjamin's
ruin
to
the
end.
planning.
This sounds very optimistic, but I can genuinely say that everything that we're doing in the agency at the moment is has me buzzing with energy. If I just give you an example from Monday. On Monday, I walked into one of our coordination centers, and all of the member states were there from the Baltic area, working together in order to coordinate fisheries control that was going on to make a difference for the future. And the energy that I was getting from seeing the work that they were doing gives you huge energy. The energy that you get from the projects. There's nothing at the moment that we're doing in the agency that I'm not buzzing with energy about. Every single day we're working with all of our member states, with the non-EU countries as well, with the partners in the Coast Guards, and I have to say that you get this huge energy. There's a thing, I think, for many in the audience who probably feel it as well, and for people who are here at the Ocean Days, where some of us, I think, genetically were born with saltier blood. So when we're working with the oceans and when we're improving things day on day, it gives you an incredible energy to keep on doing it. So genuinely, I'm buzzing about everything, and I'd be here all day if I was talking to you.
And not one baby project, no.
Well, yeah.
But Susan, you've contributed so well that I'm going to let you answer the other question as well, the problem that keeps you awake at night, because I'm actually going to ask all the panelists to respond to that. I also frame this as my magic wand answer as we come to the end of a session, which is, if you had a magic wand, what would you fix straight away? What's top of your list? So you can answer this, Susan, and then we'll come to the others.
So, Benjamin, the problem that keeps me awake at night is the standard human one, which is the fear of failure. And I think that if you look with psychologists, it's meant to be our most common fear. When we get up on a stage, we've got a fear of failure. Fear of failure is there. But the question you have to ask next is, what does failure look like? So if I just go back a tiny bit, I'm a career marine biologist. I come from a beautiful coastal region in the west coast of Ireland, similar to New Zealand. And I have to be honest, all of the coasts of Europe are stunningly beautiful and so special. And I worked in innovation and in development. And I went to Newfoundland. I drove along the coast in Newfoundland, and I saw what happened after the cod fishery collapse. The blocked up shops and villages, the closure of schools, of hospitals, of medical things. And for me, when I saw that, that was what the failure in fisheries, the whole system looked like. And for me, that is what wakes me up at night. Are we doing enough to make sure that we have a future for the coastal communities, a future for the fishers, and a future for all of the marine life that's in the ocean? And that is the driving passion that I have, and that is the problem every day. Are we doing enough? I think that I can answer, we're doing a huge amount, but we can always be better at everything we do.
Yep, always a work in progress. Lindet, so what's keeping you awake at night, if anything? And if you had a magic wand, what would you fix?
Since Saturday, what keeps me awake at night are the vessels of EU member states in the Persian Gulf and the situation around the Strait of Hormuz. So we are monitoring now permanently the vessels, certainly also the cruise vessels that are in the Persian Gulf. So we set up overnight some monitoring tools. So permanently we are monitoring the situation. So that is certainly a very important challenge for us at the moment. What would I like to fix? Maybe as the EU to be a bit more daring. Daring with our agenda and the things that we want to do. Because I agree with Susan, there's still a lot of potential not being used. So I think we can still do much more to help with all the problems that we are confronted with.
One example, where can we be more daring?
Maybe also with the application of AI, with the cross-fertilization of databases, of using more the operational capabilities of agencies. I think there are plenty of examples.
Okay, Lindet, thanks very much. Lars, are you having a good night's sleep every night? A full 8 hours? Or are you waking up with this terrible problem? And also, I'm going to give you the magic wand.
I could tell you so many stories about that, but, well, there are huge challenges, but they don't keep me up at night. And you know why? Because we have a great team. The Team Europe that is also here in the audience. And when we stick together and face the problems, the challenges of the future together, we're going to succeed.
And the magic wand question, what will you fix, though, if I gave you the magic wand? If you could fix something immediately, there's always something we can improve. We can come back to you.
Well, we have huge legal challenges to implement with the migration pact coming that will cost us a lot of work and perhaps also further legislative steps.
Wouldn't that be great if you could just flash the wand and all the legal issues are all sorted, everything in their box? Lars, thanks very much.
I wish it was that simple.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I can't grant the wish. Unfortunately, it's a magic wand on its own. Raphael, for you, what's keeping you up at night? Also, I'm giving you the magic wand. If you were able to fix something in your sector, maybe where you work in Spain with the Coast Guard, maybe it's with the cooperation on a European level, what would it be?
Okay, just from my point of view, the main problem is the protection of underwater infrastructure, that this infrastructure affect the normal life, our society. They provide energy, they provide data, so any breakdown, this infrastructure could affect our society. So we need to improve quickly our capability. We need to improve our knowledge about underwater situation, and that's why one of the main activities on the Spanish presidency of Mediterranean Coast Guard Forum is a workshop specific about the protection of underwater infrastructure based on sharing best practice and procedure to build the underwater situational awareness and how to take advantage of the new technologies to carry out underwater protection.
Okay, great. So not just above water, but underwater as well. Raphael. Fabio, same question to you. Are you getting a good night's sleep?
Yeah, apart from my two daughters, by the way. Yeah, I totally agree with all the colleagues, all the panelists. By the way, linking the question to the cooperation, we allowed me to say that ultimately the cooperation is made by people. So people, when we have people in operation room or deployed on board a ship, aircraft, very often they are in the in a harsh situation, in a bad condition, or they had to decide in very few seconds because from them depends sometimes lives of people at sea. So the solution should be that we need to build much more relation, building trust, and also to have more and more confidence between peoples across Europe. And so in this way, we can move from institutional cooperation to a concrete and operational effectiveness to have safer and more secure seas. Yeah.
Okay, nice to finish with the human connection, speaking about the people. Fabio, thank you very much. Thank you to our panel. A warm round of applause for our panel. Thank you very much also for the questions. There'll be a prize for Benjamin afterwards. That's an extra cake. He's already had one. It's the second one. But thank you very much. And listen, maybe we can just stay on the stage because we have some closing remarks from Christos Economou, Head of Unit, Deputy Director at DG MARE. So he's been listening with interest to the panels. And yeah, collaboration, cooperation, some of the key words for me. Christos, some closing remarks for our panel.
Well, Seamus and audience, well, thank you very much for inviting me for the closure. And I first of all have to thank the panelists. And clearly you have done an excellent job as also moderator. But I believe it's because we had very good panelists to tackle all the questions that we had in mind with this session. And on this, I would like to thank also my team for putting together these excellent participants and obviously looking into the more interesting topics for an audience that we have envisaged for these ocean days. Let me say a few words, putting a summary to what we heard today, and I would like to start with the directors from the DG MARE and the External Action Service, that they put a key mark to maritime security, not only from, let's say, its own value, but the importance it has for our economies. I mean, the European Ocean Pact is certainly a proof that maritime security belongs to a broader policy framework when we look on the way we would like to frame our way of living, both from environmental but also economic perspective, our interaction to the sea, and clearly has its place there when we look how we implement the pact. There was a lot of reference to the EU maritime security strategy and its action plan, but as rightly said by the External Action Service and from DG MARE, obviously the concept developed a lot over the years. What we had in mind in the previous decades is not anymore what we face now, and indeed the maritime security strategy has put together all these different facets of maritime security, and we tried to look into two specific things that are really very, very topical today with the session. When we look to the protection of critical maritime infrastructure and shadow fleets, definitely is something that you read in the press. And this is also the big difference, that maritime security has been always important. It was said this afternoon earlier on, but now it's important for everybody. And this is, I think, an acknowledgement by the citizens, and it puts more pressure even to our institutions, the politicians, and also the operational colleagues here that we have shared the stage today. And maybe it would have been better not to have that attention, that things were, going in a perfect way, but unfortunately, we heard about all these challenges that we need to face and how we put together our tools. I think here the panel that you had this afternoon proved that cooperation is essential, not only among member states in the EU, but also with the bodies that we have there to help collectively, the three agencies that here with the presence prove that we work together and we take stock and we reflect on the future. And sometimes, the reality catches up with us, and we have really to think forward really fast and faster. So this is, I think, the geopolitical situation that was mentioned also earlier on is there to remind us that we live in troubled waters, and if we don't put collective solutions, we will definitely have issues also in our own space. We remain a land of peace, but if we don't really look to the maritime security, it's there where things, as I said, happen that impacts clearly our own institutions and citizens. So with this, I would like, again, obviously, to say that we will take stock of all the discussions. This is, I think, the role of the colleagues here, and we took note of all these excellent exchanges, and we will see how we will implement some of the ideas that came out. That's, I think, the purpose of the sessions, and I hope that the audience is becoming wiser. I think we have been all very lucky to have such excellent speakers with us, both in the previous panel and this one. And with this, I would like to applaud all of you and all of you for being there and accompanying us in this excellent session, closing it. Thank you very much.
Christos, thanks very much. Warm round of applause. And so, yes, thank you very much to the panel. And as I keep saying, this is not just one conversation, it's part of a conversation. And let's keep the dialogue going in the name of collaboration and cooperation. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.